and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before. So can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look at my soul. I've been afraid I would follow alone. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
It is a Wednesday edition of Running Points on YSNLive.com. Hang on a second. I got Power Hour on this thing. How do I flip that thing?
So there's a little eye. There's an eye on the. You see a running point. There's a little eye icon.
Yeah, I don't even see Running Point on this thing. Yeah, hang on a second. Where are we here?
I'll get it for you.
That's good stuff. Yeah. Preparation is key here, gentlemen. Preparation is key. All right, for the next 3 hours, we are going to be having some fun, talking some sports. And obviously, you, the fan, can take part in this as well. 330-886-0813. That's 330-886-0813. Which one was it?
Well, it's cut off, but
Okay.
There's a little.
The third one. All right. And I have to click on the eye?
Yeah.
All right, there you go. These damn computers are the devil. That's all I'm going to say. All right, fortunately, Anthony Hardwig knows what the heck he's doing in his Georgia Tech gear. Have your softball jersey and your yellow jacket hat.
You know, as an engineering school, I better have some knowledge of computers. So.
All right, there you go.
Fan of an engineering school.
There you go. There you go. All right, lots of things to dig into. The NFL or the MLB draft is tonight. Pirates are going to be picking 7th. Speaking of the Pirates, Greg Brown will be joining us at 2:00. News coming out of MLB is in the next week or so, there's going to be a resolution one way or another. We're hoping for a resolution that does not include Rob Manfred saying, hey, you guys are going to play, we're only going to do 50 games, and that's going to be our season. You got to have more than 50 games.
If he was going to come in and put a stop to it, he should have done it this week, because then they could have still gotten to July 4th, and it would have been really good for baseball. Like, if you're going to make that move, make it at a time that saves the game. And you know what I mean? Like, saves the markability of putting it on July 4th and saves a whatever 60, 70 game season, whatever he wanted to put in it. But now it's almost kind of too late, because even if you come in, you're only going to have a 50 or 60 game season. You're not going to start it on July 4th anymore.
Well, the owners are dead set, and the networks are dead set to have the World Series on time and the regular season end on time. On time is Sunday, September the 27th. So if you're going to do that, and then you're going to start you would start the playoffs, and again, depending on whether you want to expand the playoffs or not, my assumption is you would start the playoffs on Tuesday, September the 29th, and you would go all the way through October the 28th, being Game 7 of the World Series. Okay, if you want to do that, that's great. But here we are in June. You got to have at least 5 weeks for training camp. It's June the 10th. So we are now, if you were to go back and say the 15th of June, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is July the 20th would be the end of training camp. And you would start the season probably around the 22nd on a Wednesday.
You can probably get away with 4 weeks of camp, though, and do it July 13th or whatever.
Yeah, but the only problem is, I mean, your pitchers aren't going to be completely ready to go. Then you're going to have your bullpen all.
Back when we were talking about starting on July 4th, we said 4 weeks is doable. we were trying to squeeze into July 4th. So I still think 4 weeks of training camp would be doable.
At the end of the day, even whether you start on the 15th, let's say they start on the 15th, July the 15th, ending on September the 27th, you're not really talking about all that much time here. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks and 4 days. So that's 74 days of baseball, and you're not going to be playing every single day, nor are you going to only let them have 4 days off. So I'm thinking
like
probably 60 games.
60 would be, and that's like on the fence of, okay, you can be a doable 60-game season. 50 is just it doesn't. When I hear 50 for baseball, it doesn't scream to me.
Well,
60 is like on the fence.
Yeah, 60 minimum for me. Because if you're going to go 50, let me give everyone a reason why I'm not really all that big on 50 games. Last year, the Washington Nationals were 19-31 after 50 games. They won the World Series.
Exactly. I mean,
so you're not going to have the best team winning the World Series if you have a schedule of 50 games. You may not even have the best team win the World Series if it's only 60 games.
Well, I think this year, we're even if it's 60, we're going to have to accept that maybe the best team, quote unquote, doesn't win the World Series. We're going to have to shift that thought to the team that handles these situations the best. And like we said before, I give props to whatever team handles this situation the best and goes and handles the 60-game season and does their job and wins the World Series. I won't put any asterisk next to it because they're not, quote unquote, the best team in baseball. But if you go in, everyone has to do the same thing. Everyone's on the same boat. So if you handle it better than everyone else and you win the World Series, then props to you.
Players Association is talking about an 89-game regular season that would run from July the 10th through October the 11th. The owners are pretty much going to reject that proposal.
Yeah, if they want it to end on time.
And not to mention the fact the players are still hung up on 100%, which again I agree with. Look, if you're going to be paying these guys, you're going to pay them their contract, not for the whole season, but prorated. I completely agree with that. However, you could...
But the players also, they extended the playoffs too, so that would help out the owners. So they gave the owners a bone, right?
Yeah, they gave them a bone, but the problem is if you're extending the playoffs and the season ends on October the 11th, you're playing baseball into Thanksgiving, and nothing says baseball quite like pass the turkey and stuffing. No.
Yeah, you're right. But World Series, it might be a little bit different. I mean, people are going to not watch the World Series because it's Thanksgiving. I mean...
look.
I know it doesn't feel right, but nothing's going to feel right.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I would love to see the season end September the 27th. That's on a Sunday. And then start the playoffs at the end of September, go all the way through October and into the World Series. Look, I like the fact that the MLBPA has said, hey, we have no problem expanding the playoffs. Okay, that's great. If you're going to have a 50-game season, which I don't like, but if you are going to have a 50-game season, then you better damn well have at least 8 teams from each league going into the playoffs. Then I'm not happy with it, but okay, maybe we can work something out.
Let me ask you this. Would you rather see a shorter season that ends on time or more games but go into a later date for the playoffs? What would you rather see come out of this?
Well, I mean, I want my cake and eat it too.
Right.
But if gun is pointed to my head, I want the season to be over by the end of October.
Okay. So
that's where I think the owners and the networks, more importantly the networks, want this to be all over with by the end of October, and I don't blame them. At
least like the first week and a half of November.
Yeah, I mean the first couple of days of November. Yeah. If it has to go that far into the first couple of days of November, which I think it has recently, not consecutive years, but it has recently bled into November a little bit. So
I mean, Jeter's called Mr. November because he's come up clutch in November of the World Series. So
yeah, that was in the 2001 World Series, which was delayed anyway because of 9/11. So, but I mean, especially this year. Imagine this. And again, this is going to be a contentious election. Or whoever you're voting for, this is going to be a contentious and very, very close election, according to the experts. Can you imagine the World Series being played on election night? That's a nightmare. Nobody wants to see that. I know the folks at Fox would be like, no, pass on that, hard pass on that. We want to be able to have our news department and everyone do the election
Fox
returns.
has an advantage, though, because they have more channels than ABC, NBC, and
That's
CBS.
true. That's
So
true.
They have more avenues to put everything else on.
That's true. But I don't think in their heart of hearts they want a World Series game on election night. So I think that their thought process, and it's been said, is end this thing by the end of October. Okay, if you're going to end it by the end of October, end the regular season by the end of September, Sunday the 27th, get the playoffs started on the 29th, and then go from there. Now, I just hope that these two can coexist and come up with something, because if they don't, Rob Manfred is going to say, okay, I'm going to take this over, and we are only going to play X amount of games. Players are going to get their entire salary, but we're only playing X number of games. And at that point, then you ask yourself, how many of the superstar players are going to only want to be on the field for 50 games, risking all kinds of different stuff for just 50 games? I'm not saying that that's right. I don't think it is. Look, I mean, if you have a 2-game season, get your ass out there and play the 2 games.
Right.
You know, don't assume, well, I might be able to get hurt, because I get news for you. If you step out of bed, you might be able to blow out a knee.
If you're playing with your drone, you might get hurt, Trevor.
Yeah, exactly. If you play with your drone, you might screw up the whole goddamn season for the Indians. But I'm still bitter about that, but whatever. The whole what-if game is, get that out of here. You know, I mean, do you think that you're going to get hurt all the time? Because if you do, chances are you're going to.
Yeah, the players that are timid and try not to get hurt are usually the ones that end up getting hurt more than the ones that are just going all out.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Brian Solnar will be coming in via the YSN hotline at 1 o'clock, and we will chat with the guy that runs Mill Creek. Hey, we have a golf tournament, the first of back-to-back golf tournaments going on, and that is going to be at Dublin, not Ireland, Dublin, Ohio. We have a loaded field, and man, is this going to be a lot of fun. This will be all kinds of fun as the PGA Tour gets hopping again. And from what I understand, one of these 2 events will have people in the galleries. So this should be an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun because it's going to be we're going to be able to talk about sports and analyze a sports event. Like, yeah, let's do it. Like, we're having someone call in to preview a sport event. I couldn't be more excited for that because it's finally happening.
Yeah, no kidding. And the memorial again, this is one of the 2 events that is going to be going on. This is the Charles Schwab Challenge. And again, full boat of PGA golfers in the Charles Schwab Challenge. Normally, the Charles Schwab Challenge is not in Dublin; it's at another course. But again, they have decided to move this, and this is going to be an awful lot of fun. So we'll talk with Brian Solnar about this. We're also going to get Brian to do a tip of the week for all you golfers, and I could have used one of these tips yesterday.
A little late.
But hopefully, and I'm going to be writing stuff down because my golf game, let's just say it's a
wet match in a dark cave.
It is not good. It is not good. I had fun with my dad, always do when I golf with him, but yeah, it was not pretty. It was ugly actually, and yeah, I'd like to have fun, but also actually hit a ball consistently well instead of left, right, pull your head up, dribble the ball, not basketball dribble, but hit a ball and it dribbles 50 yards and that's it. I'm like, what the hell is this? So, yeah, my game is a mess.
Mulligan.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Apparently, this is a bunch of people that went golfing, and they normally have this rule: you're allowed one mulligan off the first tee. That's it. That's it. One, and you can use it, or if you don't use it, it's not like a timeout that you can use later on. If you don't use your mulligan, you're out of mulligans, regardless. And then whatever you do, hit a ball out of bounds, you're penalized. You're penalized one shot. So just like any other, just like any other thing. So I hit a ball, goes into the woods. All right, I'm dropping in front of the woods, and instead of hitting my second shot, I'm now hitting my third shot. So, yeah, it was...
So you didn't take the mulligan option?
I didn't, because I actually hit a ball halfway decent on the first tee. And I thought, okay, I think I'm going to be okay today. I mean, it wasn't straight down the middle. It had a little bit of a hook to it, and I think it landed in the rough, but not too far into the rough. So I was like, all right, that's no big deal. I can play with this. The rest of the day, though, oh, my God. And here's the problem. I'm going to have to talk with Brian about this. Here's the problem, and a lot of it's on me. When you're addressing the ball and you stand to how you want to hit the ball, subconsciously for whatever reason, I'm standing to the left of the ball, and I hit it, and it's going to the left. Well, duh, no kidding. You're aiming that way, and that's what I couldn't catch myself in time. Aiming in the wrong area. I mean, this was a hot mess yesterday. Holy smokes, was it a hot mess.
And he did 18 holes, too. 18
holes, and we didn't keep score in the normal fashion. This was pretty cool. I actually think this is a really cool idea for those that would love to do this. They kept score in that if you got a birdie, you had 3 points. If you parred the hole, you had 2 points. If you bogeyed the hole, you had 1 point. Anything else, after a double bogey, 0 points. If you eagled a hole, let's say you got a hole in one on a par 3, or you got a 3 on a par 5, 2 on a par 4, you get 4 points.
So they're flipping the counterintuitive scoring of golf.
Yeah.
So the highest point total.
So the highest point total would win, and they had it with teams which whatever. I don't even want to say what my point was. Let's just say that it's in single digits.
It's really low.
Let's just say that I can count on one hand single digits for 18 holes. Embarrassing. It was absolutely embarrassing.
It's interesting because when I was little, golf really messed with my head because of the scoring.
Yeah.
Like every sport teaches you score more than other people, and then golf is like, no, you need to be lower than other people. It messes with your head.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's counterintuitive.
But it's a fascinating game. It drives me nuts, mainly because I have really gotten some bad habits over the last year and change of not playing the game, and then you start playing, and you've developed some really bad habits. So we look forward to Brian Tolnar giving a tip every Wednesday.
So what you're saying is golf is not like riding a bike.
Oh, hell no. Not even close. If I rode a bike, I rode the damn thing into the ditch. That's just, or I rode with a flat tire the entire 18 holes. Good news is, though, I walked in here
pretty
healthy.
Yeah,
I'm not sore in any way, shape, or form. I thought I was going to, because the last time I golfed and it was only 9 holes, Tylenol and Aleve were my best friends. But today, no, I got no problems. And maybe it's because I've been walking so much that I don't have any stiffness or soreness anymore.
Which means you no longer have an excuse for Friday. You're running that 40.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's sundial and
It's
and oxygen and CPR is going to you're going to have the ambulance people on standby.
EMS is on.
Yeah, they're on standby. So that just that you want to talk about ugly? That's going to be ugly.
Sadly, we do not have an office defibrillator, so if your heart stops, you're
Okay, I may welch out of this 40-yard now, knowing that you guys don't have a defibrillator. I may have to bow out gracefully on this one. I don't know. All right, 330-886-0813. That is the number to call. Bubba Wallace has challenged NASCAR to do a little bit of changes when they go down to Miami, and he was talking about the bunch of things that he would like to bounce out of. Look, at the end of the day, I see his point, but okay. Okay.
okay.
That's okay. We'll pass on that one. Cavaliers are they're a little disappointed that they're not among the 24 teams that are
22.
that are invited to partake in the postseason, and they're going to use the quote snub as motivation next year.
Okay.
Hey, listen.
Okay, you do you, Cavs.
I listen. I got no problem with that. Keep in mind, this Cavaliers team, when JB Bickerstaff took over, went 5-6, which isn't all that bad.
It's under 500.
It is under 500, but if they were to have played
And they play in a
an
really
entire
bad-
82-game season at 5-6, you would be looking at 37 wins, which would give them a playoff spot, albeit a low spot. All right, let's go to the phone lines at 330-886-0813. Champ, what's on your mind, brother?
Hey, listen, I kind of just heard the end of your golf story. Where did you golf at again? Could you kinda,
Fox Run in Stowe, and my goodness, is that place gorgeous.
yes, I've heard of that place. I haven't played it, but someday I'm sure our Sunday traveling league will get there. But
It's a beautiful
the golf-
course.
it is, and the golf courses are just gems. I mean, I played a course this past Sunday called Rolling Acres, which is down in Chippewa. And the Pennsylvania course is just recently opened, as you know. But and this Sunday we're playing down in East Liverpool, East Palestine, called Turkana, which is a course that we kind of discovered like 3 or 4 years ago. It's really fun to play.
Champ,
Very hilly.
is that Rolling Acres? Is that the course that is near Blackhawk High School?
Yes, exactly. You're exactly right, and it's also near Blackhawk Golf Course.
Yeah.
And it's got 27 holes. It's got 3 nines, and it's unique because usually when you play 18 holes, they have the handicaps listed from 1 to 18. But here's on this course, the Rolling Acres, they have 3 different nines. So each 9 is the handicaps from 1 to 9. So in other words, if you play 18 holes, you've got to kind of refigure the handicaps in because they do them by 9, not by 18, which is kind of unique. But it's a wide open course, and I've never played the Blackhawk course, which is nearby. Then the high school, as you said, is nearby there also. But there's so many nice courses. If you just draw like a 60-mile radius around Youngstown, there's so many beautiful courses you could go to that still have reasonable prices. And as we know, golf is something that you can do during this COVID-19 because you don't need to. There's no contact in golf, and the worse golfer you are, the better off you are because you're way away from everybody. You're hitting the ball all over the place, then you don't have to worry about it.
Well, thanks for making me feel better on that note, Champ, because
yes.
Lord knows I was nowhere near anybody when I was shooting my second and third and fourth shot. So, yeah, good times.
I will say this, though. I know that golf, the least amount of strokes you have, the better, but think about it. If you're paying money and you're swinging and you're taking more strokes, you're getting actually better use of your money. right? That's the way I look at it.
Listen, I was worth every single penny on that golf course. I hit every square inch of the places you're not supposed to hit in the 18 holes. That's no doubt. Listen, I've golfed at Blackhawk a few years ago. Nice course, really nice course.
Yeah. And people I'm more of a student of the game of golf. I was pretty much a baseball, softball player, and the transition was not easy for me. But once you start figuring out and studying, because it really is a mental game. But they always say, and I'm sure when you talk to the Mill Creek guy, that most of the times when people have struggle in their games, like 80 or 90% of it is basically in the way your stance is. Basically, I mean that's just so fundamental. Is when you get up there. And then you just got to have this repetitive swing. And then once you start learning how to hit a draw or a fade, depending, I'm left-handed. So those are some of the things you can work in. But once again, the short game is so important because that's where you really save a lot of the strokes. I mean, if you could drive the ball 250 yards all the time, but if you have no short game, you're not going to score. It's simple as that.
Well, my short game was quite short yesterday. There was plenty of opportunities for me to get a number of pars. I would be really close to the green, and I would use a sand wedge or a pitching wedge, and I would either hit it over the green or I would chunk it, and the ball would land like 2 feet, 3 feet in front of me, where 3 feet down the road, where I just it was one or the other, and I had absolutely no touch whatsoever with my sand wedge or my pitching wedge. The putting, I've never really had that big of a problem with putting per se, but the 100 yards and in from the green is god awful.
Yeah, these professional golfers, which we're just in awe of, I mean, they practice constantly, and we don't see that. And we think that they all are really good, but when we watch a golf tournament, usually on the weekends, we're watching the guys that are playing well. The guys that aren't playing well, that didn't make the cut, they also struggle too. It's a very, very difficult game. And but the fun thing about the game is it's a game you can play till your later years, and it's all I got right now in terms of if you like competition, like I do. And but you've got to get to the point where you don't get frustrated, and you got to be good enough where you're satisfied. And I always, whenever I struggle, I always take out and look at my license thing. It doesn't say Phil Mickelson on my license, so what am I complaining about? Okay,
listen,
just enjoy the game for what it is. Okay,
yeah.
Just enjoy it.
Listen, I golfed yesterday with my 87-year-old father, and we had a blast. 18 holes, hot as all get out. But I mean, the score didn't matter. I had so much fun, even though my game was god awful. I had a lot of fun because I was golfing with my dad.
And I don't have that opportunity, but what a blessing to have an 87-year-old, especially your father, out there doing something he enjoys at that age and in good enough shape. And I'm sure he's probably a really good golfer because no one golfs that long. And he plays it probably the game safe. He probably hits it pretty much down the middle most of the time. Doesn't go very far. But those are the guys that really score well because they play the game long enough. They understand it and don't always try to hit a great shot. Just when you're off the fairway, just try to get back in the fairway. Everyone tries to hit a great shot, and then you just have further trouble. But they really understand the game, the veterans that have played a long time. I'm sure your dad reflects that.
Well, I mean, he hit the ball straight down the middle. It wasn't very far, but he hit it down the middle 9 times out of 10 off the tee. And here I am hitting the ball, and I think on the 18 holes, I might have gone into the fairway 3 times out of 18 holes. And he was pretty much 12 or 13 of the 18 times.
Yeah, but it can be a frustrating game. But if you just deal with it, what it really is, it's something that you should enjoy. You're outdoors, and especially during this time, it's one of the few things that we're able to do. That keeps us safe, pretty much. Which is why the golf courses are jammed. They are jammed. I mean, it's hard to find a place anymore to golf, but we have so many nice golf courses in this area, and we're blessed. And we have a beautiful one, Mill Creek Park, that to have 218 whole 36 holes at a place right down the street from me. We're blessed.
Oh, there's no question about it. Champ, the MLB draft is tonight, and it's pretty weird talking about a draft when we don't even have baseball. But the Tigers are picking first. for, I believe, the third time in the last 10 years. They're picking first. Spencer Torkelson from Arizona State seems to be the guy that Detroit is going to grab, a first baseman out of Arizona State. Yeah, I could see that because Miggy is probably on the.
He really worked out in the offseason, and he was hitting the ball really well in the short time we saw him in spring training. But you're right. And then normally there's a lot of good pitchers. I mean, there's a left-hander that a lot of people like, but the Tigers have drafted, as you know, recently so many power pitchers that they are overloaded with pitching compared to what they have from hitting on the hitting side, position players. They literally have 10 to 15 really good pitchers coming up in AA and AAA right now. That it's a good problem to have, but it's time now they think about putting some runs on the board. But at first baseman, they haven't really had one since because Miguel's going to play a lot of DH if they ever start playing baseball again. But this guy seems like he'll be able to get to the majors, maybe quicker than a lot of people think, and he looks like a guy that's going to be a legit hitter in the major leagues. We hope, but you never know with the baseball draft. But I think he's the obvious choice for the Tigers right now. I don't know. Is he a left-handed hitter, Ron? Do you know?
I want to say that he is. I'm not 100% sure on this. And there's also talk Austin Martin, who's a corner outfielder or a corner infielder, and maybe an outfielder. He played at Vanderbilt. His name has been bandied about. Asa Lacy, left-handed pitcher from Texas A&M. His name has been bandied about as well.
Right. Yeah, that's the one. And once again, I think the reason why they're going to pick this first baseman is they have a lot of pitching, and and they that's a good thing. And a lot of those guys are right at AAA right now, and this is what hurts the Tigers because it's kind of set back the development of these pitchers because a lot of these guys that these stud pitchers they have, and I think they had 4 of the top 50 baseball pitchers in baseball. And they're going to be kind of set back now because this was the year they thought they'd get to AAA and maybe make it to the majors at the end of this year, for sure next year. But now that's all put aside. Who knows what's going to happen there? But the obvious choice right now, I think, is a first baseman. And but the mystery is who they're going to get in the early second round because they're going to be picking early also in the second round. But it's amazing that the baseball draft, which we never really talk about that much, but because of the situation where there's can't believe I was watching the cornhole championships last night on TV. I said, oh my God, what am I doing here? I was watching it. But yeah, that's how desperate we are to watch sports. So I'll be tuned in tonight, but I guarantee it won't be as fun as watching the NFL draft because that's a much bigger production. But baseball is tough because, as you know, a lot of these players, we may not see them for 3 or 4 or 5 years before they get to the major league.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the difference between the MLB draft and the NFL and the NBA draft. You see the product immediately or damn close to immediately in basketball. You still have the G League, but 99% of the time you see the product immediately. You see the product immediately in football. You don't see the product immediately in baseball because baseball has a minor league system, and nor do you see the product immediately all the time with the National Hockey League either.
Yeah, the thing tonight after the draft, after these days are over with this draft, what are they having, 5 rounds now?
Yeah,
only 5 rounds?
5 rounds this year, yes.
Right, and the big thing's going to be when you're drafted now, especially maybe in the later round, the 4th or 5th round, you're going to be thinking, now what's going on with the minor leagues? Because that's going to be a big question. I mean, before we had all these teams pretty much set up, rookies and all these organizations, there was a kind of a pattern where they would go and how they advance. But now it's kind of up in the air on where some of these players are going to end up. And because if they don't start off really good immediately, they may be just totally out of baseball.
No, I agreed with that. It's just for me. We've talked a little bit about this. I'm not a fan of dropping 42 minor league baseball teams. I'm not a fan of it. Now, if you're going to get rid of a league, I think you can get rid of rookie ball. But I just don't think that you should get rid of short season A ball. If you want to use short season A ball to be the landing spot for the kids that are drafted in June, and depending on how many of them you sign, you use that as a landing spot for them to get their feet wet. And then if they're a prospect, quote unquote, or if you feel that they are past the short season A and they need to be challenged, then you can move them to low A or high A if you want them to skip low A, which, again, you really have to be advanced to go to high A ball.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of the players, because there are more than any sport that we're talking about, the four major sports, baseball players peak or are late bloomers or whatever. I mean, I remember, you look at Corey Kluber. Corey Kluber has had a really nice career, but he's 33 or 34 years old. That's because he spent, more time in the minors like a lot of players do. Some are ready to play maybe 19, 20, 23, 24. Some that takes till 27, 28. And that's why you have the minor league system, because there is a learning process with most of these players. They've got to develop a skill good enough to play in the major leagues, and that's why we need these minor leagues. Unlike the other sports where pretty much there isn't much process there. You go a couple levels here, then you're ready to go. But baseball, you can have a guy spend 5 years in the minor league, and then all of a sudden, boom, the light goes on, something happens, and he has a really nice career. Maybe starting at age 28, he starts to get good, especially with pitching.
No, I agree with that. Hey, we got to let you go. By the way, before I let you go, Torkelson is a right-handed batter, champ. He's a right-handed batter.
Okay, well, I would prefer a lefty, but we'll take anything right now because the offense of the Tigers last year was pathetic.
Yeah.
Pathetic.
Yeah, well,
I appreciate it, guys.
Appreciate it, man. See you. You're probably not going to see Torkelson playing Major League Baseball anytime soon, but if he is the first-round draft pick or the first pick overall, it makes sense because, like Champ said, the Tigers have spent an awful lot of time building their farm system with pitching, and they do have some damn good pitching on the farm.
And if the Tigers don't get him, I love the Royals to go pick him up.
Yeah, there you go.
But everything I've been reading about the Royals says that they're really high on pitcher out of Georgia. I think his name's Hancock, right-handed pitcher. Throws mid to high 90 fastball, got a pretty good curveball too. Hurts me to say out of Georgia. Pains me with every breath to say that.
Yeah, Kansas City is picking fourth, according to Keith Law, who is employed by The Athletic. He has Kansas City selecting Zach Veen, an outfielder from Spruce Creek, Florida, out of high school.
I've seen him too. He's a pretty good hitter.
Yeah, they have been talking about Emerson Hancock, Nick Gonzalez, who, by the way, that's the guy that the Pirates are pretty much wanting to grab. Gonzalez is a middle infielder from New Mexico State, and if he's not gone to Kansas City at 4, there's a really good chance Gonzalez drops to the Pirates, which wouldn't be a bad thing because apparently this kid is pretty damn good.
Yeah. And like you said, it's so weird to talk about an MLB draft when there's no MLB baseball going on right now.
5 years ago, I did some research. Now, the Major League Draft has only been on since 1964. Prior to 1964, it was the Wild Wild West. You would have kids getting signed by everyone, and you would just basically not have a draft. It was, if your kid wants to play professional baseball, scouts look at him, and whoever is going to be in line with the biggest offer would wind up getting the person. Well, it wasn't fair to the smaller market teams, so that's why they started getting a draft. Now, the caveat in all of this is the draft is only open for American and American territory ball players. So in other words, Dominicans, Venezuelans, Mexicans, Cubans, or those that defect from Cuba, they're not eligible for the draft. You can still go into the Dominican, go into Venezuela, and grab a 16-year-old kid and sign this kid to a contract, and they don't have to be involved in the draft.
Right.
My thing is, and Bud Selig kind of brushed past it, I think that it would be a great service if you had a worldwide draft and not just a draft that includes just American and American territory players. Puerto Rico is American territory, hence the Puerto Rican kids are going to be subject to the draft. You just can't go into Puerto Rico and say, "Hey, I want to sign you." And that's, you can, but there's a pretty good chance this kid's going to be drafted. So you wait until the draft and then go from there. I think that they should do a worldwide draft where everyone is eligible and nobody gets that. Nobody gets the opportunity to do a backdoor deal
Right.
Until the draft is over, and then, okay, you want to do a backdoor deal with someone, hey, the draft is over, you can sign him as a free agent, spend however money bonus-wise you want, and you can go from there. I think Major League Baseball would probably be a lot better if they were to have a stringent rule. Okay, we are going to have a draft. It's a worldwide draft, and this is what we're going to do. Nobody can be... no player that was not subjected to the draft cannot be signed until the draft is over.
Phil, are there any diplomatic and red tape obstacles to kind of jump through to make that happen?
I'm sure there is.
I'm sure there's a pretty diplomatic reason why that hasn't happened yet with all the.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's probably something in that regard that's the reason why. I just think in a perfect world. Look, if you want to sign a guy that has professional experience to a contract and invite him to spring training as a non-roster invitee, knock yourself out. But for me, if someone has never played professional baseball before, and that's minor league baseball, if you've never played professional baseball, and that includes the independent league, you shouldn't be eligible to be signed until the draft is over. And I think that if you have a world draft instead of a draft that has American kids and kids from American territories like Puerto Rico, I don't think that that's a good service, especially when players from the Dominican, Venezuela, Mexico, Cuban refugees who come to the Dominican or Venezuela and say, hey, I'm able to sign a big time contract. Wait a second. That person should be put into the draft.
Would you include because you said I haven't played professional baseball, would you include the guys that you take from the Japan League? Since they're already playing kind of quote-unquote professional baseball.
Well, it's professional baseball.
So they can be signed without the draft.
Yeah, they can be signed without the draft, and they're already in professional baseball.
Yeah.
Just because if a kid has been playing minor league baseball in Korea or Japan or one of the countries that has pro baseball where you're getting paid to play baseball, that makes you a pro. No, if you want to sign a contract before the draft, have at it.
Did you see the Korean game where they filled the stands behind home plate with a bunch of stuffed animals and cartoon characters and things like that?
Oh, good Lord.
Greatest thing I've ever... I've never stopped and laughed so hard at a baseball game because I flipped it on and I saw the home.
Now, what kind of cartoon characters are we talking about?
There were Sesame Street people there, so Elmo was sitting there. Cookie Monster, SpongeBob, Pikachu.
Okay. There you go.
Pokemon.
All right.
all those. And then there's random stuffed animals too.
Now if we're gonna go Hanna-Barbera cartoon characters,
like
you gotta
Brown.
have Magilla Gorilla,
Yep.
Snidely Whiplash, Dick Dastardly. Penelope Pitstop, further down the road, Captain Caveman, Scooby-Doo, Jabberjaw. I'm cool with that.
It's just such a creative thing to kind of try to fill the void that instead of having empty stands, let's just put stuffed animals and stuffed cartoons.
I'm good with that. I'm good with that. I have always felt sorry for kids that did not grow up in the era of Warner Brothers cartoons and Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Those, hands down, best stuff I have ever seen on TV. That Hanna-Barbera, friggin' geniuses. And then Warner Brothers cartoons, it's nothing without Mel Blanc. You have to have the guy that provides all the voices for the characters and whatnot. But it just Saturday mornings in the late 60s, early 70s, plop down cereal watching Saturday morning cartoons, and nowadays you got
kind of morphed into Cartoon Network, and they have the same kind of style, but it's not quite the same in their cartoons that they put out now.
Yeah. I understand HBO Max is going to have Looney Tunes, Warner Brothers cartoons.
And you can get Boomerang.
Yeah.
And they have most of the Hanna-Barbera
See, now,
cartoons.
I have a problem with that because they're taking away Elmer Fudd's rifle, and they took away Yosemite Sam's pistols. I'm like, wait a second. That's what the character was about. Yeah. Elmer Fudd was hunting rabbits. What are you going to do? You're going to have Elmer Fudd going, shh, be very, very quiet. I'm doing something. With rabbits. No, give him his rifle.
Right.
Yosemite Sam without the pistols. He's not Yosemite Sam. He's just some clown with a mustache that talks weird. Craziness. All right, 330-886-0813. We'll take a timeout. Brian Tolmar coming up at 1 o'clock. We are going to break down the Charles Schwab upcoming PGA event at Muirfield, the house that Jack built just outside of Columbus in Dublin, Ohio. And we will also get his tip of the week, which, well, I could have used yesterday.
A little late, Brian.
Yeah, a little late, Brian. Thanks a lot. We'll be back in a bit. Stick around. It's a Wednesday edition of Running Points, YSNLive.com.
Hey, my Ohio friends, it's Mike Ditka, and I know great talent and heart when I see it. I can tell you from firsthand experience, there are average real estate agents, then there are true champions. Kelly Warren is one of those champions, and you have it right there in your own backyard. Kelly outmarkets and outsells every agent in the Mahoning Valley. If Kelly can't sell your home at a price and deadline you agree to, Kelly will buy it. Get your home sold. Call Kelly Warren today at 717-2689 or go online to kellysoda.com and start packing.
You can feel it. Baird Brothers' traditional craftsmanship. You can see it. Baird Brothers' timeless style. And you can afford it. And find everything at BairdBrothers.com. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is real hardwood, yet beautifully affordable. Floors, moldings, interior doors, bar rails, and stair parts. All within your means and without a care. Start at BairdBrothers.com. You have made it. Your home.
Teams work hard and give it all they've got. Well, so does ours, because 21 Sports and YSN give you extra effort when covering local sports. 21 Sports and YSN, winning coverage of our Valley's teams.
It's a Wednesday edition of Running Points on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta with you alongside Anthony Hartwig, dressed in his Yellow Jackets gear. He's a Georgia Tech guy. Have I even asked where this allegiance comes from?
Well, yeah, it started as a bandwagon fan. I'll just be there. I'll be there. I'll do that because when I was in 4th or 5th grade, I'm filling out those brackets, picked Georgia Tech to go to the championship game, and they did it. And it was when they had Jared Jack was on the team. So he played a little bit in Cleveland, so that's probably the only.
Was that Bobby Cremins was the coach?
No, it was after Bobby Cremins.
It was after.
It was Paul Hewitt who brought a lot of one-and-done talent to Georgia Tech basketball. Iman Shumpert was on the team with him, Derek Favors, people like that, people that succeed in the NBA.
Gotcha.
But then at the same time, they had Calvin Johnson on their football team. So when I got interested in college football and then looked at interested in their basketball team first, and then looked over their college football team, and they have the best wide receiver in the nation. It's hard not to fall in love. Now, since then, you cannot say I'm a bandwagon fan because it's been kind of rough being a Georgia Tech fan since 2006. But we'll do it. Won the Orange Bowl in 2014. So we've had some highlights.
Look, Georgia Tech is a interesting football program.
Yeah.
the triple option.
People dogged on the triple option a lot, but
Yeah.
Paul Johnson came in and proved that it works if you execute it right in the Power 5 conference. If you guys and recruit it right and you execute it right, it works. And it works sustainably. Like everyone, he came in 2008 and he went to the ACC championship game and won it. Went to the Orange Bowl and everyone, well, it's a gimmick because no one's ever seen it before. But then he continued his success. He won an Orange Bowl with it in 2014. If you have the right players in there and they execute it, it's a really hard offense to stop.
Well, it's not like people haven't seen it before because it was the brand of football in the 60s and 70s.
No one plays against it anymore.
No,
So that's
exactly,
that's
and that's why it's successful.
And it was the ultimate equalizer if you didn't have the same talent on the field.
Absolutely.
So Georgia Tech could never get the talent that Clemson got. But we always gave Clemson fits with the triple option because it's the ultimate equalizer.
Because no one else is doing it. So that's
Right.
why I've been one of those people that have said, if I were a head coach in football, I would want to use something that, or I would be tempted to use something that hasn't been seen in years. The advantage, of course, being nobody else does it. You have to prepare completely different
absolutely.
when you're playing a team that has a triple option or a wishbone or something that is old school. You have to do something completely different for that week, and that has kind of an aftershock as well. I don't have the numbers, but I would be willing to bet that teams that play Georgia Tech, they kind of feel it that next week as well. I know in Navy's case, whenever Notre Dame played Navy, I was worried about Navy, especially when they got better. But the week after was always the game that Notre Dame struggled when they played Navy because, here's Navy. They're doing stuff that you normally don't see. They're running 99% of the time. Mm-hmm. You normally don't see this stuff. Their offensive linemen cut block.
Yeah, that's something.
Which,
you can't practice that.
And you can't practice that. Exactly.
You can't practice cut blocking. And Georgia Tech was like Navy on steroids because they had the athletes to run it.
Yeah.
They had the speed. You can't simulate the speed that they ran in. And Paul Johnson was old school because he didn't have the play sheet. He would whisper in the guy's ear and run into the huddle. So it was like you're watching a high school football team almost in that kind of style. But it was fun to watch. And after a while, Georgia Tech kind of thought that maybe it would hit the ceiling and he couldn't get them any further. And they brought in Jeff Collins from Temple, and now he's kind of struggling trying to take that triple option roster and turn it into a pro-style offense.
Well, it's going to be a while.
It's going to be a while.
And people have to understand,
the fans thought he was going to come in and have success overnight because he's going back to a pro-style offense. And I was trying to tell everyone, like,
it's not going to happen.
We have guys that are built to run the triple option.
Exactly. This is one of those scenarios, and again, this is another thing that I am very much in favor of. If you're hiring a coach, especially in college ball, you better give this guy at least 3 years to do what he's doing.
Especially if he's changing your offense completely.
Exactly.
I mean, that's when you hire a triple option guy and you have him for as long as you had Paul Johnson, you better know that when you get rid of him, you're going to be down for a while.
Exactly.
Because it's going to happen.
You can't sit here and say, oh, we're going to blame this guy the first year when you go from 8 wins to 4 wins. No, you're not going to do that because he's trying to change an offense, and unfortunately, every single player, depending on when he was hired, if he has his first recruiting class, well, they're true freshmen. You're not going to see very many true freshmen on the field, so it's going to be 2 or 3 years before the transition is complete from one style of football to another style that's completely different.
And I'll give Coach Collins a lot of credit because he's been here this is his second year. Already, our class of 2021 class, so the guys coming in next year, ranked top 20 in the country. So he's really changed the culture and he's really bringing people into the program. So hopefully in the next 2 or 3 years, Georgia Tech can be relevant in football again.
Yeah, and they're going back to a pro-style offense, and there you go. So
And
anyone
trust
that
me,
can beat Clemson, that would be nice.
it'll still have the option look into it because, like last year, you'll still have that look. You'll still run a lot of option plays. It'll just be out of the shotgun, sort of the wishbone kind of style. And I like the first play from scrimmage of the season, he lined up in the triple option formation and then motioned out of it. Kind of the tip of the hat to the old regime.
Do they play Notre Dame this year?
They do at Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
All right.
So that might be moved to Georgia Tech's campus. I don't know if, with the state of college football, Mercedes-Benz that third. We talked to.
It's not that big of a move. You're going from Atlanta to Atlanta,
right? But the revenue kind of for Georgia Tech would be big for Mercedes-Benz because that draws a lot of people.
And you're taking on a team that is arguably one of the big schools that brings everyone and their brother to a game. So
it's neutral site, but it's not neutral site.
Yeah.
But Bobby Dodd Stadium is the oldest stadium in Division I college football. So
how old is it?
It's back into the 1900s. I mean, it's the oldest field. They've renovated the stadium since then,
Gotcha.
but the actual field and the actual vicinity is the oldest in college football.
Interesting.
From back when Heisman coached at Georgia Tech.
All right. Interesting.
They beat a poor team 222-0.
Ah, yes, I remember that. Cumberland College. Yes. Yeah, if you had 221.5 on the betting line, you lost. We're going to take a timeout. On the other end, we will have Brian Tolnar, our golfing guru from Mill Creek, and we are going to preview the Charles Schwab Open, which is normally not at in Dublin. It's normally at another golf course, but because of COVID-19, they are going to move the tournament to the house that Jack Nicholson built in Muirfield down in Dublin, just outside of Columbus. We will catch up with Brian Tolnar, preview the Charles Schwab, and we will also get his tip of the week, which I probably should have used or could have used yesterday on my disastrous 18 holes of golf. That is coming up in a bit. It is a Wednesday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com.
21
Good evening,
News.
and thank you for joining us.
Let's get right to our top
More
story
experienced reporters
A new Wilmington restaurant.
GM Lordstown.
telling more local stories
We'll look at
Baby
efforts
boy
to
is
curb
recovering from a broken.
around our
Good
valley
Community in Niles,
afternoon. We are here in Youngstown, right up.
because you expect
It's important for everyone. No place like home.
more local news.
In Mercer County
before
Court.
they become life-threatening.
21 News is our valley's #1 local news.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
Hello, I'm Greg Burbick with G. Burbick Farms. For the last 100 years, my family has farmed in Columbiana and Mahoning counties. I began raising cattle in 1996 with the goal of providing a better product for you and your family on the dinner table. Our grass-fed and grain-supplemented Black Angus beef are raised with no hormones, steroids, or antibiotics. We're known for our hometown-friendly service and incredible tasting products. We're locally owned and have customers across the tri-state area. Our products go from our farm to your family. Stop by our farm on New Buffalo Road or visit us on the web at gburbickfarms.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook. G. Burbick Farms, it just tastes better.
Welcome back to a Wednesday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta with you alongside Anthony Hartwig, and we are joined on the YSN hotline by our golfing guru from Mill Creek, Brian Tolnar, joining us. Brian, what's up, brother?
Oh, not too much. Enjoying the nice warm weather. Getting ready for our leagues to come out this afternoon. Had a strong league start up today with our senior leagues, and it's been good. It's been dry. It's getting firm and fast, and that's what we like. We like a lot of roll off our tee shots, and like the greens firm and fast.
Yeah, the greens where I was with my dad yesterday were very fast, and yeah, I cannot wait for your tip, which we'll do in a little bit. Yeah, I need that and about 55 million other tips, but that's neither here nor there. We got to talk PGA because the Charles Schwab Challenge is going on, and stupid me, here I am saying that everything's going to be in Columbus this week, and it's not. The Charles Schwab Challenge is down in Fort Worth, where it's probably going to be really toasty down there as well.
Yeah, they're starting off. Just took a peek at the weather a little while ago. Their coldest day down there is 94 degrees, and you're looking at 97, 98 degrees towards the latter part of the week. So it's going to be what it normally would be in Texas this time of year, just hot, firm, and fast, kind of similar to what we've seen between yesterday and today. But they get a healthy dose of that just about every day.
I lived in Texas for a couple of summers, and it's really crazy hot, but it's not nearly as humid as one would expect. Now, this is in the Dallas Metroplex area. Fort Worth is just west of Dallas. They don't get as much humidity as we do up here, but still, hot is hot.
Yeah, any time that you're talking those temperatures, you got to, obviously, from a player's perspective, you got to stay hydrated. You got you're wetting that wet towel about 3 or 4 times during the course of the round, and just trying to keep your hands cool and the sweat from dripping on your golf ball as you're standing over your putt.
Have you had a chance to kind of think about whom your favorite might be this weekend and who you're watching?
Yeah, I think there's a number of players. Obviously, it's an invitational field, normally invitational, similar to Jack Nicklaus's tournament down in Columbus. It's usually around 120 players or less. They've decided to expand the field to 144. So, just because of the season's been sort of limited on where the guys can play. So I think that's a unique entity itself. Anytime that you go to Colonial Country Club, a couple of things that you have to think about is, number one, it was called Hogan's Alley for a reason, and it's because you have to be a great iron player. Similar to what Ben Hogan was throughout the course of his career. He's a 5-time winner at that event, was the unofficial host for a number of years. So I think the player that's going to do well this week has to hit their irons extremely well. Not so much premium on length off the tee. You really have to position it well there to give yourself a good iron shot into the hole. So normally you would say on an average of 90% of the events that they play on the PGA Tour, there's really a premium on driving and how far you can hit it. This is one of the few events that that really doesn't come into play. It's how many greens can you hit. Greens are a little bit smaller than normal at normal facilities. They're a little bit tighter there, so you have to really put a premium on driver accuracy, so that limits the field just a little bit, and it brings a lot more players into play. Normally you would have your 10, 15, maybe 20 guys at a PGA Tour event. Some of the ones that you really have to position yourself off the tee and you really have to lay back to have that iron shot into the green, really brings back, a veteran on tour or players that have won there multiple times into play for the week. So I think, bringing those characteristics in there, knowing that the field has been expanded as well. There's a number of holes on the golf course that are, I would say, healthy from a par 3 standpoint. They have 4 par 3s. The 4th hole reaches 247 yards, which is very lengthy for the guys on tour, and not normally what they're accustomed to seeing. The rest of them are at 190 plus. One of the par 5s, the home hole opening out of the gate, hole number 1's 565. It is reachable. However, when you go to the back 9, the 11th hole, the only of the other 2 par 5s on the golf course this week, is ranging at 635. So that really takes away on how many guys can make up some ground, making an eagle here or there, plus having 2 less par 5s. So I think if you think about that, obviously there's a number of players that play Texas courses particularly well. Right out of the gate at 750, Ryan Palmer, he's a member at Colonial. He's got a number of days playing there during the off season. He plays there just about on a daily basis, since the COVID crisis hit. So I think a guy like that, obviously a little bit older in age, where you don't have to necessarily bomb it, but you have to be accurate. And the number of reps that he's got on that course over the past probably 2 months since the PGA Tour's been down and out, I think he would be in there. Obviously a Texas native as well. Charles Howell III is another one of those guys. I expect him to have a top 10 finish this week. He's certainly accurate off the tee, and he's a good iron player. So two of the things that really, put Colonial on the map, how good you are at hitting irons into the green. Victor Hovland's another one of those guys, a foreign player that came out with a bang in 2019. I think, a guy like that could be in the mix early on. These guys have had pretty much 2 months at home practicing, so I think you're going to see a lot of guys at the top of their game. Now, they may not be tournament ready yet, obviously coming back, getting the kinks out of it, as you would when the season starts at the beginning of the PGA Tour. But these guys have had a great amount of good weather to play and practice in, which is huge. Justin Rose, another one of those guys, the 2018 champion. He had an equipment change last year. He went back to his old stuff at the beginning of this year, so I expect him to be up on leaderboards, especially in good events. Bryson DeChambeau is another one of those guys. Obviously, we've heard a lot about him, working out and building up his body mass over the off season. It's sort of a home course for him as well. TCU played their home matches and their invitationals there. Went to TCU, he's got a lot of reps there. He's very good in the wind. That's the only other thing that would throw a kink in these guys' giddy up this week is if they do get that Texas win, you have to be able to flight your ball and hit it low. Kevin Na, our defending champion this week, he won once right after his victory at Colonial last year. He's extremely accurate off the tee. I believe he's in the top 5 for accuracy. Doesn't quite hit it as far, but definitely one of those guys that would be in the mix. And he's playing steady, and he's obviously won there, so he's got some good history. Phil Mickelson, another one of those lone, longtime veterans on the PGA Tour. He's a 2-time champ there. His big hickaboo has always been driving the ball in play. So I think, the more limited he is with having to pull out the driver, the better it is for his game. As he was at Marion a couple years ago in that U.S. Open, he had a lot of hybrids, a lot of 3-woods off the tees. I think you'll see some of that there as well. He certainly has the iron game and can get hot with the putter. A lengthy player that's in the field, locally from here, obviously Jason Kokrak has had some great history there the last 2 years, being up on top of that leaderboard. He's the only one that, really overpowers some of the holes and goes for some of the shots with the driver off the tee more so than the others in the field. And I think with his mix off the tee, he certainly, has some past achievements down there, and I think that they could ride over as well. And you look at a couple other guys, from another foreign player like Victor Hovland is Matthew Fitzpatrick. Won overseas. His game is solid. He had a great short-time career on the PGA Tour. I expect him to put in some time at the Winner's Circle this year. Ryan Moore's another one. Texas native. He hits the ball low. He's really built for a Colonial-type golf course. And then you head into the heavy hitters. Zach Johnson, 2-time winner. Ricky Fowler, his accuracy off the tees in the top 10 on the PGA Tour. Jordan Spieth, another one of those guys from Texas, went to the University of Texas, plays a lot of rounds there. He was the Champion's Choice winner from a couple years ago, got an invitation to come in and play. Each year, the champion of the tournament gets to pick 2 young, either amateurs or young and inspiring PGA Tour professionals who haven't got into the field to get them in, and I think he's done extremely well. And then you got Brooks Koepka, John Rahm, Ricky Fowler, Roy McIlroy, and Jason Day. Probably the only question mark of all the players that we talked about today. Like Tiger Woods has dealt with some knee issues, some back issues the past probably 6 or 8 months on the PGA Tour, and his health isn't quite there. But, I mean, he's one of those guys that once he gets the putter moving, he can make up some serious ground on the PGA Tour. It's just how well is the back and the knees going to hold up throughout the course of the week.
Brian, you bring up something really interesting in terms of the potential injuries and the aches and the pains and whatnot. I golfed yesterday in low 90-degree weather, and I thought, I'd shot 18 holes, which the first time I've done that in about 10 years, and I thought coming in here I would be very, very much struggling to come in here. but I, knock on wood, no pain whatsoever. And I think mainly because I was golfing in low 90-degree weather. Yeah, the aches and pains, that's tough, especially if you have knee problems, back problems. But if you have hot weather, man, that's a good equalizer to have. Now, if you're golfing in 70-degree weather or something where the sun really isn't out and it's not giving you that really warm kind of feeling, I can see where the aches and pains are going to be multiplied.
Oh, absolutely. Heat is a great equalizer to body pain and joint pain and arthritis. There's no question about it. You know, it's one thing that they don't have to contend with this week because you're not going to see anything below 94 degrees pretty much from start to finish. And that's if you're lucky enough to get an early tee time on Thursday or Friday. So it's a blessing for some of those players that are coming off of injuries and having some back issues or shoulder and knee issues as well.
What kind of a worry for you with the fact that we haven't had golf in quite a while and guys are going to start going into the routine of doing the weekly PGA Tour? Is there a better chance for injury early on in the restarted PGA Tour?
Well, years ago, I would say yes, just because a lot of the guys put the clubs away. Now, in the time frame that we're living in with, basically when Tiger Woods hit the board, these guys work out daily, whether they're playing golf or not. So I think historically they're in a lot better shape now than they were many years ago when Nicklaus and Palmer played. However, if you look back at, with exception of the hip replacement Jack Nicklaus had, never really sustained any injuries throughout the course of his career, as did Arnold Palmer. So I think, from a workout standpoint, if you're not lifting heavy weights and you're working on things that keep your body more flexible, flex bands, not so much on the treadmill either because these guys walk day in and day out, but it's the heavy lifting that gets you. I think, you don't want to lift more than your weight. Obviously you want to stay loose and limber because what happens is you build a lot more muscle mass and it restricts where your body can go. I mean, if you take an example like David Duval, when he was playing great, was a lot bigger, was a lot less flexible, was more of a athletic type body. When he got to the point later in his career, when he started falling off the face of the earth, he thinned down to basically about 160 pounds. And I think the workout regimen that he had with that really took its toll on his body. So he had a lot of injuries to the back. He had a lot of injuries to the spine. So I think a lot of those things you really have to be cognizant of, what type of muscle mass that you're putting on, and it has to be right for your swing. Bryson DeChambeau is just the opposite. He went from being little, got leaner, but added a lot of muscle. So because he was trying to pick up distance on the PGA Tour, he's picked it up. So we'll see how that works as he starts the season out.
Brian, I have a pick for this week, and I want to hear what you think of it. I'm going to go with Webb Simpson to win the Charles Schwab. What do you think of that pick?
I think you're on the right path. He would be definitely in my top 10 picks. And I think if I had to lay my Power 5 down this week, obviously any of these guys can win on any given occasion. I would go Justin Thomas, John Rahm with his 2 second-place finishes there, Bryson DeChambeau, who we just mentioned briefly, Brooks Koepka, and then that 5th spot's going to fluctuate between Rory McIlroy and Ricky Fowler. But Webb Simpson is definitely at the top of the list this week, too.
Jordan Spieth has 6 top 15 finishes at Colonial. He won the the championship in 2016. He's always a threat to crash the party per se. Does he get another top 15 finish this weekend in your mind?
Well, I think his struggle the last year really had to do with his putter. When we saw him play at the top of his game, he made, just like Tiger Woods, everything he looked at, from about 10 feet in on any given occasion. And I think when he was making his run with some wins, the putter was definitely the story. Those 10-footers for par, 7-footers for par that keep your round going, and a birdie that you needed from 10 or 15 feet in a timely part of the golf tournament. I think if he gets that back, which is where he's been struggling, obviously being in Texas, he knows how to play down there. He knows how to practice down there. He knows Colonial better than anybody, as he won there, I think, in 2018. I think he's definitely in that mix, but he's got to get the cobwebs out of his head that he's had a bad year putting and struggling with the putter.
Hey, Brian, a couple more things before we let you go. You brought up Jason Kokrak, and it appears to me that Jason could take advantage of those par fives, albeit the few amount of par fives, but he could definitely take advantage of that. Ultimately, what is Jason going to have to do extraordinarily well for him to be a top 10 golfer or to even get a championship here this weekend?
Well, I think this week, it's more of how many greens can he hit and can you find the bottom of the cup with the putter. And I think if he does both of those well, he doesn't have to really kill the golf course on length because he's got plenty of length with a hybrid. He's got plenty of length with a 3-wood off the tee. But if he's very accurate with his driver, which he normally is, on a 450 or 430-yard par 4, he could have flip wedges into those holes. And I think if he's got the ability to hit those shots close, he's given himself an advantage over the field. However, there's a lot of dog legs right and left that you really got to work the ball, and positioning is paramount this week. And I think if you do that, put yourself in the right position, stay out of the rough, where the ball has the tendency of staying down when it's very warm. It won't sit up on the top of the grass. So I think if he stays out of the rough, hits it in the fairway, he's got as good a shot as anybody. And based on what he's done there the past 2 years, 3 years, I think he's going to be in the driver's seat to doing something good.
Brian Tolnar from Mill Creek joining us as he does every Wednesday at this time through the rest of the PGA season as the PGA Tour gets going. The Charles Schwab Invitational down in Fort Worth, Texas, where it's going to be hot as it normally is in the Lone Star State in the summertime. Before we get to a weekly tip, which will be something that you do when you're calling us every Wednesday to preview the upcoming weekend on the PGA Tour, let's talk a little bit about Mill Creek. You said that you had the groups out this morning. We've had just great weather the last few days. What has the course been like the last few days?
Well, it's starting to dry up, starting to firm up a little bit, which is, I always say this place is like a tale of two golf courses. It plays extremely different in the spring and in the fall than it does in the summer months, just based on how firm and what our soil substructure is with being clay-based. So it takes a while for the moisture in the water to get out of it, but once it does, it firms up pretty well. So, coming out of last week, if you recall, last Wednesday or Thursday night, we received about 2.5 inches of rain. We were on the cart path over the weekend. Grass, obviously, with the 90 degrees and 80 degrees is growing like banshees right now, so you want to stay out of the rough here just like you would on any golf course. But I think if we dodge what we've got basically on the radar tonight, I think we'll be in great shape, heading into the weekend and heading into next week. Everybody likes the roll off the tee ball. No one's complaining when the ball's not, running out and going an extra 30 or 40 yards, but they do tend to squawk a little bit when you hit a tee shot and it stays within about 3 to 5 inches of its pitch mark. So, we're excited certainly to have it firm up and get to the way that we want it to go. From a greens perspective, we did a greens drainage project last year. Normally on greens, you want anywhere between 11 and 13 inches of root growth, and ours, because of the soil structure that we have, has never been more than like 2 inches. So, they could go bad real quick, and you had to be very, very careful. So basically, we went from 1920 to 2020 drainage on the green. So we're hoping around 4th of July, you'll see them consistently being a little bit more tighter from a cut standpoint and a lot firmer and a lot faster, similar to the area courses around here. We just needed to upgrade our technology from that standpoint. But I think as you move forward, it's great to have everybody out here playing on a firm and fast golf course.
Okay, two of the hottest days of the year, yesterday and today. It's supposed to get up to about 90 degrees today. Would be the second straight day of 90-degree weather. And yet this weekend, 70 degrees, the high for Saturday, maybe the low 70s, and a little warmer on Sunday, low 70s. From a golfing standpoint, from a golf course standpoint, what is the major difference in terms of the golf course on a 90-degree day than a 70-degree day?
Well, on a 90-degree day, you start the day with all the sprinklers on your tees, your fairways, your greens, and the places where we have it in the rough. You go out and cut, and basically on a 90-degree day, you're going out in the afternoon, turning the sprinkler system back on just to cool the grass for about a 10 or 15-minute period in between groups, just so the top of the grass and the root structure doesn't die out. In addition to that, on spots that the sprinklers don't get, our guys are out there hand watering certain little areas, usually on or around the green or on or around the tee box, not necessarily on the fairway, but normally around the most important pieces of the hole, which is the tee and the fairway. And that's really what's different. And obviously hitting them back with some more water in the early evenings, like at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. What we try not to do is we try not to really water at night as much, because the more that water sits, the more that you're susceptible to like algae and mold and some other diseases. But, really the amount of time and the amount of water that you put on a 90-degree day is completely different than a 70-degree day like this weekend. They're talking it may even just hit about 66 degrees on Saturday. So what they would normally do on those days is they would water them basically once a day. They'd hit them in the morning, go out and cut, roll the greens if need be, and then basically you don't have to water them the rest of the evening. If it stays hot later in the day, they may touch them again at the end of the night. But during the day, basically syringing is what they call it, where you're watering the greens just to keep them alive, to keep the grass growing, to keep the roots alive and well. And that's really the difference, the amount of water and the time that it takes to hand water certain areas and the extra shots of water throughout the course of the day.
If you know that it's going to be really, really hot, like yesterday, if you know, hey, the weather forecast is mid-90s, no rain, are you purposely not taking groups for about an hour so you can use that hour to soak the grass and get that grass watered up?
You would like to think that. You would like to be able to do that, but our key times when we start booking them for the year is basically after Labor Day for the following year. So we're really subject to whatever play that you have on the tap for that year when you book the tee times from the fall all the way through the course of the year. So I think that, from a impact standpoint, our superintendent and his staff are very good about going in between groups when they can. There's always little gaps, little pockets here and there, and they really try to do it from that aspect. They will double it up later in the evening after like the league play is done, or you're basically following the last group as they finish. But it's a super juggling act, and as much as you wish you could say between 1 and 2 or 2 and 3 or whatever time period you want to water, you could say, hey, I don't want anybody out there in those times. It would be a luxury to be able to do that, but I mean, we're obviously here to make money, and we're here to get as many people out and give them the opportunity to play golf, if and when they can. Our season and our window is very small, so country clubs have that more of a luxury than the public golf courses and municipal run golf courses in a situation like we are, where we're just trying to fill the sheet up as much as we can on a daily basis.
All right, Brian, I'm sure that this feature is going to be the best feature for all of the knuckleheads like myself that can't golf worth the hill of beans, and I probably could have used this tip before yesterday, and I was actually half tempted to leave you a text and ask for any advice before I went golfing with my father and his group of friends. Give everyone the tip of the week this week.
We'll go tip of the week. We'll start it with putting. We'll work from the green back to the tee. And I think, from a putting perspective here, it's where you position yourself into the hole. So you definitely want to be below the hole because you're always going to have that upper hill putt. Donald Ross was very good about sloping greens from back to front. So you want to be beneath the hole. And I think one of the things that we see on a daily basis when we give instruction or we give golf lessons is, let's say we'll use a 3-foot putt, for example. So the average golfer on just a normally flat 3-foot putt has the tendency of taking the putter back a little bit too far. So they will take the putter back, say, a foot, maybe a foot and a half, and then they'll slow it down coming through because you've taken the putter back too far. So I think early on, especially, since our season basically got a late start, I think you want to start with putting. So you want to think about your arms and your shoulders coming together like a triangle. Obviously, ball position is going to be slightly ahead of middle, ahead of center. And you want to think of your arms and shoulders coming back and forth like the pendulum of a clock. So on a 3-foot putt on a level surface, you want to take the putter back 3 inches. You want to accelerate through that putt 3 inches. So however far you're taking the putter back, we want to make sure that we get the putter going forward, and we want to make sure that we're accelerating through the putt. Having a backswing that's too far back, you have to slow it down, and once you start slowing down, you'll start manipulating the face, whether it be open or closed. So if we want that nice, smooth tempo back and through, we want to keep it short on the short putts and a little bit longer on the long putts. But you want to take the putter back as far as you're going to take it through on the follow through. So, that average golfer will take it back a foot, foot and a half, and then sort of stop and, right at the ball. What that does is allows the ball to pop up. It allows the ball to skid. And once the golf ball is skidding, it's going to have the tendency of getting offline very quick. The average putt is missed in the first 3 to 6 inches of the putting stroke. So if it's offline in the first 3 to 6 inches, it'll be off 3 to 6 inches right or left as you're coming through. So we want to make sure our arms and shoulders make that pendulum motion just like the clock's arm ticking back and forth. We want to maintain rhythm, and we want to make sure the backswing is exactly the same as the forward swing, so we're accelerating through the golf ball.
I could have used this yesterday. I'm just saying. I really could have used this yesterday. My putting was, well, it's beyond bad. If I could give myself a grade, F is not bad enough. I think I'd have to go Z-.
Uh-oh. Well, putting's the great equalizer, and if you can figure that out, right off the get-go, you can save yourself a lot of shots. And I would say this, 50 to 60% of the game, if you marked it down on the scorecard, from 20 yards and in, comes down to chipping and putting. Eliminating 2 and 3 putts, eliminating an extra chip shot here or there. If you did that one time per hole, you can knock 9 shots off your game very quick. If you eliminated half of that, 5 shots is a big chunk off your score when it's all said and done. Same thing goes, we talked about that 3-footer. If I'm 20 feet, we want the putter coming back 20 inches, accelerating 20 inches. The uphill putts are obviously going to add a little bit. The downhill putts are going to take a little bit off. And then it just comes down to green reading on left to right, right to left. But, I mean, you want that same motion back and through. And I think if players go out and do that, they're going to be in good shape.
I can feel myself getting better with this piece of advice. And I now look forward to going on the golf course the next time and using this when I'm on the green.
Oh, we hope it works for you. And the other piece of advice that I'll give, and this goes for every golf lesson that we get, I use the 3 letters, PMA, positive mental attitude. If you're positive and think you're going to make a putt, you're going to make it. If you got worries over the putt, you're never going to knock that putt in. So have a positive mindset behind you. I think if you do that, you're in great shape.
Great advice as always, Brian. I'll look forward to talking next week.
You got it. Sounds good. Have a great week.
All right. Thank you very much. Brian Zolnar from Mill Creek providing us with some really, really good advice.
That whole segment was really good content because he went from, breaking down what the course is like in Texas to the players that are his favorites, and then coming all the way back down, we took it local and what's going on at Mill Creek, and then of course his tip of the week. A little late for you, but
yeah, a little late, but that's good. Now that I know, okay, 3-foot putt, I'm just going to go back a little bit and then just follow through.
You got to get to the green first.
Well, that's the issue. But once I get to the green, now I have a better because I when he said guys have a tendency to go back a little bit. He was reading my mind. I was like, no wonder why I was screwing up on the green.
And you got to finish just as far as you went back.
Yeah.
People tend to, I think, when I will watch it, they stop.
Yeah.
And,
That's what I do. I would stop.
Yeah.
Instead of following through. So if I'm 3 feet away, just go back a little bit, follow through. That's now that he said it. sounds so damn easy.
Oh, well, duh.
Duh, no kidding. Well, okay. Yeah, should have probably taken care of that.
So it sounded like his favorite this weekend was Justin Thomas. I think he put him at number 1. Yeah, he listed about 5 people that he thought were in his top 5. But it sounded like he put Justin Thomas at 1. I'm going with Webb. Who do you pick this weekend?
Oh, boy. Look, I mean, there's so many guys that I honestly think can win this thing. I think Justin Thomas is solid. I think Brooks Koepka is another one that's pretty solid. I'm going to go Rory McIlroy.
All right. That's a solid pick.
I'm going to go Rory McIlroy. It's been a while since he was been able to really, put his stamp on some stuff. He used to be the top ranked golfer, and he was a top ranked golfer entering the COVID-19 world. 7 consecutive top 5s worldwide. That's pretty good before we started going into the COVID-19 stuff. I don't know if he comes roaring out of the gate, no pun intended. I wouldn't surprise me if he wins this. I would also say keep your eye on Jon Rahm. I think Jon Rahm is another one that is going to be there on Sunday, and I cannot say Jason Kokrak isn't going to be a player in this. I think if Kokrak is able to consistently go tee to fairway, I think he's got a really good shot at this.
And then you also have to mention the guy that won it last year, because he's always been good at this course, and the defending champion always deserves a seat at the table when you're talking about who can come and win it.
Yeah, and Jordan Spieth, 6 top 15 finishes at Colonial. He won it 4 years ago. He's someone that I would definitely think would be someone that should be a contender for this. In the betting world in which we are in, you've got the places where you can go and say, hey, I'm going to pick these 5 golfers on my quote fantasy thing and see how much money you can win. I would probably put Jordan Spieth in my 5, but again, this is a loaded field.
Yeah,
140 players. I mean, this is a loaded field.
And it's such a wild card because it's the first one back, so you just don't know who's going to handle it well and who's not going to be able to handle it well.
Yeah, and I think the guys that are either members of either members of the country club in Fort Worth, they're probably going to be someone that you can sit back and say, okay, these guys have played this course. Yeah. We're assuming they've played this course a ton prior to this weekend. You would think that they would be amongst the favorites as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be a fun weekend to see if any 3 of us get it right. If the NFL draft is any notion of you and I's knowledge, you might want to go bet for Justin Thomas and go with Brian's pick.
Yeah.
We're not good at picking stuff.
Well, I mean, we did get
3.
Yeah, that's not very good. I was trying to say that we did a better job, but no, we really didn't.
We bombed it.
We bombed it. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
But yeah, I got Spider-Man, Webb Simpson, and you got Rory McIlroy. So we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Be very curious to see what happens. I just hope Kokrak gets a top 15 finish.
It'd be great.
Yeah, I think he's capable of doing that.
Imagine if he's the winner of the first tournament back. I mean, it's probably going to be one of the most watched golf tournaments in a while since it's the first one back and people have been itching for live sports. So.
Well, and that's the other thing is just the fact that these guys are back on the golf course and yet another sport is coming back. We've had NASCAR, who, by the way, is in Martinsville this weekend. I believe Blaney is on the pole for this weekend. Now you've got the PGA Tour. Yeah, this will be a lot of fun, and it'll be more fun if Jason Kokrak is amongst the leaders going into the final round on Sunday. That would certainly make things a lot more interesting, and hopefully, fingers crossed, because I do have a contact with Jason Kokrak. I'm able to contact him. Hopefully he does well, and maybe we can get him on the show. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I can tell you who is coming on the show in about 25 minutes. He is the voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Greg Brown will be joining us at 2 o'clock. Brownie said something when we were talking that I'm going to be real curious if he's a Nostradamus. He said that the players and the owners would come to an agreement today.
Oh.
Now,
well,
I don't know.
I was impressed with how quick the players put out another offer. I mean, it took them less than 48 hours to come out with the 89-game offer after the owners put up their last one. So
and I think the owners
are
going
to kind of go real back and forth.
Yeah, I think the owners are going to reject it, and they're going to quickly put another offer together. I think it's even though the margin is really wide, it's not nearly as wide now. I think the players' proposal was a good proposal. It's a good start. It was a good start. No, you can't have the season end on October the 11th, nor are you going to have the World Series well into November. That's not going to happen. But it's a good start and a good parameter. And I'm okay if Major League Baseball decides, you know what, we need the playoff revenue, and we're going to chance it that we're not going to get COVID back in the fall. So we're going to do an 18 playoff. I'm good with that, especially if you have a 60-game season.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's a long season, a normal season, hell no. Yeah, I don't want to see 8 teams because, frankly,
you don't want to see
8
1
teams.
versus 8.
Yeah, 8 teams don't belong. At the most, it should be 5. It should be 5 at the most, and you go from there. But maybe 6, but I still say 5. Because you can do the play-in game.
Baseball's so fickle too. I mean, you expand the playoffs too much in a normal circumstance, you could really wind up with not the best team in the World Series, just because baseball is so fickle.
Well, yeah, and I like the format as is. I never thought that I would like the wild card. Never thought I would. I never thought I'd like the wild card. But when they moved the teams and the leagues to 3 divisions, and then they included 1 wild card team, I was like, okay, this is good, but it's not great because the wild card team is not really at a disadvantage. Yeah. They got to take on the number 1 seed, okay, but still they're not at a really big disadvantage. Adding a 5th team
and having that
play-in game, okay, now the wild card team is at a disadvantage on paper because you blew out your number 1 starter. And that number 1 starter's not coming back until Game 3 of the LCS of the LDS.
It obviously can be a big advantage to, if you win in a dramatic fashion. You're going to carry that momentum right into the DS, which happened in Kansas City in 2014. Of course, they won on a walk-off in the 12th in the play-in game against Oakland, and they went and they swept the whole American League in the playoffs. So.
And it's not like the wild card team hasn't won the World Series; it has. The
Giants in 2014.
Absolutely. So you even though you are at a distinct disadvantage after the play-in game, doesn't mean you can't win the whole thing because it's been done before. But I like the fact that the 2 wild card teams do a play-in game, and on paper at least, it gives the number 1 seed a very good opportunity to lay waste to the wild card team and then be done with it.
The other thing it does, it just makes September a little bit more exciting because you have more teams that have a legitimate shot at making the playoffs. So you have a little bit more conversation as you go through September.
No doubt.
So September is that much more meaningful than it used to be.
Now, in a 162-game environment, do I want 8 teams in the playoffs? No, I don't. If they decide to do it, all you're going to do now is you're going to move the season well into November. Yeah, and I don't know if that's something that you would want to do. Now, when you expand to 32 teams, and make no mistake about it, baseball is expanding to 32 teams, especially if they don't get the money that they're supposed to get this year, because they're going to have to try to recoup the billions of dollars that they lost. And I'm with you, Anthony. If Montreal's not one of the two teams, I'm going to be pissed. Because Montreal shouldn't have had their team taken away from them to begin with. The strike of 94 is the reason why Montreal doesn't have baseball right now.
It'd be interesting what that other city, though, is for the 32nd team. Some options. I mean,
well, if you got a team in the East, now you got to go west.
Yeah.
And if you're going to go west, there's two cities that I have in mind that are near Seattle that would provide a pretty decent.
You think like Portland?
Portland and Vancouver.
Okay.
Would be two cities that would provide the good rivalry with Seattle. You would put the team in the West in the American League, and you'd put Montreal in the National League. Mm-hmm. And then if you have 4 teams in each division, 4 divisions, you don't need a wild card. Now all you need to do is just have you have your 4 divisional winners. Now, if you want to have 2 wild card teams and have the 2 wild card teams
have a plan,
but that doesn't even make any sense because if they have a plan, now you got 5 teams and you can't do it that way.
Right?
Do you give the top 2 seeds carte blanche to the AL or NLDS, and you let 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5?
Maybe, but that doesn't make a ton of sense either. I mean,
this isn't like football where it's a one and done.
Right.
You have to have a series. That's why I think for me, top 4 teams in your divisions, and there's only 4 teams in your division. Look, if you can't win your division, you get, there's 3 other teams you have to beat. If you can't beat your other teams in your division, sorry about your luck. Now, that may not go over too well, but I'll guarantee you Major League Baseball would want 6 teams. So if that's the case, then you got to have best of 5, 2 versus 6. 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5, best of 5, and then you have a best of 5 and a best of 7 and a best of 7. So you're adding an extra layer of playoffs, which means that if you want the World Series to be done by October, you got to start the season earlier in the season, and then you're talking March, mid-March. Who the hell's going to want to play baseball in mid-March in the North?
Right. No.
Doesn't make any sense.
No.
So baseball's run on a thin line in terms of their scheduling and whatnot, but I'll be curious to see what Greg Brown has to say about this when we get him on at 2 o'clock. All right, we're going to take a time out. On the other side, more of this craziness and your phone calls as well. Craziness. 330-886-0813. Back in a bit. It's a Wednesday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com.
Ah, the details. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is one fine ride. Perfect cornering, superb handling, sporty and stylish, power to spare, plus awesome mileage. Yeah, jaw-droppingly beautiful lines and well appointed with luxurious trim. Put more oomph in your life and start beholding the molding. Find your home's fine hardwood at BairdBrothers.com.
Storm season.
I think we're under the gun for some heavy storms over the next couple of hours.
And Storm Tracker 21 is ready.
This is probably the one we're keeping a closer eye on.
On air.
And locally, we're going to have a lot of eyes on our area.
Online.
All right, let's talk high-risk futurecast and the timing of this weather.
On social media and on our app.
Day in the showers, I'm keeping my eye on in parts of Columbiana County.
Stay ready with Storm Tracker 21.
The severe weather threat now through around sunset this evening.
Hi everyone, this is DJ Yoakley with Your Sports Network. We appreciate your support of YSN and welcome you to the YSN family. Our broadcast streams are brought to you live at no cost to you by sponsors that are local to this community. Without the vision and generosity of our sponsors and partners, we would not be able to bring this game to you today. So please support the great businesses and leaders that are making this game possible. And if you're a business in need of great advertising and sponsorship opportunities, feel free to head over to our site for more information on the right fit for you. We are local, we are loyal, and we are live. We are YSN.
Wednesday edition of Running Points on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta with you alongside Anthony Hardwig. Numbers to call, 330-886-0813. That is the number to call. Major League Baseball draft is tonight. Pirates are picking 7th. We'll see what Greg Brown has to say about this. Again, we've been talking a little bit about the draft. It's unfortunate that we don't have any baseball, yet we're going to have a draft tonight. And again, keep in mind, just a 5-round draft this year, as the owners are continuing to make the point that, well, we don't have fans, we don't have the game, we're losing money. I found it interesting yesterday, the principal owner of the St. Louis Cardinals, DeWitt, was being interviewed on a local station, and he made mention that it's not really a profitable game, baseball. It's not a profitable game. Can I just say BS to the owner of the St. Louis Cardinals? Spare me this crap, because here's the thing that everyone needs to know about the city of St. Louis and their baseball team. Since 2014, the St. Louis Cardinals have been no lower than 3rd in total attendance. They've been top 2 in all but one of those years, 3rd in the other year. So they got people coming to Busch Stadium at outrageous prices, coming to Busch Stadium to watch their beloved Cardinals. The St. Louis Cardinals also have one of, if not the largest radio markets in all of Major League Baseball. They have more affiliates than most anyone in Major League Baseball, because the St. Louis Cardinals are the Midwestern team. They've got affiliates in all kinds of different states.
I bet it's them in Kansas City, because Kansas City probably has the other end of that, where they have Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, Oklahoma over there in Kansas City.
Yeah.
St. Louis has this other end of Missouri, where they have the Iowas, the Illinois.
And their local radio and TV contracts are absurdly good. Not to mention the fact you also are 1/30th of the piece of the pie of Major League Baseball national contract with ESPN, with Fox, with MLB Network. You have 1/30th of all of the content from MLB.com, all of the subscribers that pay buku bucks for the TV and the radio on MLB.com. Don't give me this crap that the baseball is not a profitable sport, because when you bought the St. Louis Cardinals, you bought the Cardinals for less than $500,000. It is worth, according to Forbes, that franchise is worth over $2 billion. So when I hear an owner in arguably the greatest baseball city in America bitch and moan about, well, this game isn't really that profitable. No, you're full of it.
Wow,
you are absolutely full of it.
Kind of like that woe is me mentality that he's got going on.
And this is the reason why the players don't trust the owners. Don't come here with this, we don't make that much money crap. You do. And especially in St. Louis, you do.
I mean, they came out with how much baseball will lose if they don't have a season this year. It was $4 billion. That means they were going to make $4 billion if they do.
Listen, I'm gonna rail on the players every bit as much as I'm gonna rail on the owners. But when an owner sits back here and says, "Well, especially an owner of one of the better teams in baseball, well, it's really not that profitable. Shut up. Yes, it is.
It's like the Red Sox owner saying that. It's like, no, stop.
You got to be kidding me with that. And again, when a guy like Blake Snell comes in and says, I'm not going to be playing unless I get my way, or I'm risking my life. I got news for you. When you get out of bed in the morning, you are risking your life. I mean, now the chances of you ending your life or getting your life ended.
When you get in a car, you're risking your life.
Yeah, now the chances of that happening are remote. They're minuscule.
So are the chances of Blake Snell getting COVID-19.
Exactly.
It's probably better chances that he gets in a car wreck, knock on wood. But you got probably a better chance dying in a car wreck at Blake Snell's age and in physical health than you do at COVID-19.
Listen, if a guy's making buku megabucks, and God bless anyone that does that. I mean, that's on you. You are clearly good enough to be on the grandest stage that this sport has to offer. And if you're making what your owner believes is fair market value, God bless you. But don't open your pie hole and say, woe is me, and expect to have someone feel sorry for you. Read the room. There are 41 million people in this country looking for a friggin' job. Read the room before you open your pie hole and say something stupid.
His gripe was understandable, but the way he said it was extremely tone deaf.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, this leads me up to the next part of this, and we're going to ask Greg when we get him on in about 10 minutes. Greg Brown, Pirates broadcaster, will be joining us around the 2 o'clock hour. And I'm going to use your team. The Royals don't have a, quote, superstar, unquote. Whit Merriman is solid. Jorge Soler had an unbelievable year last year.
Led the AL in home runs.
Yeah, he had an unbelievable year. But there really isn't a, quote, superstar. The George Brett is not there.
We got rid of all of our superstars in 2016.
There you go.
Eric Hosmer, Moustakas, Kane.
So let me ask you, if they go to a 50-game season and a couple of Royals players say, yeah, I'm not going to play 50 games. This is ridiculous. This is just, it's not worth it. Are you going to feel differently about that particular player?
Yeah.
I mean, when the 2021 season comes about, and knock on wood, we're playing 162 games, are you going to remember, hey, you didn't show up for the 50 games, get out of here?
It's the old cliche, like if you can't support me at my worst, then don't come back and try to help our team at a normal season. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you're not in the trenches with the Royals, who would have a legitimate chance at the playoffs in a 50-game season because it's the wild, wild west.
Everyone has a legitimate shot.
So if you're not going to come and help us try to go into the playoffs in a weird season like that, then don't come back and try to play for us in a 100. Well, play for us, but I'm not going to be super excited about you anymore in the next season.
I'm with you. I'm with you. If
especially on a team like the Royals that don't have these superstar, highly paid players.
Yeah, I mean, I'm becoming a really big fan of Franmil Reyes. I loved him in San Diego. Now that he's in Cleveland, I mean, this kid has got some off the charts power, and I think that if he gets himself to where he's lighter, and we saw it in spring training where he was hitting bombs despite losing 25, 30 pounds. Look, if Franmil Reyes comes in and says, hey, guys, thanks, but no thanks, I don't want to do this. I'll see you guys 2021. I'm done with him. I won't be able to support or be a fan of anyone that turns their back on their teammates in the 2020 season. If it's a 50-game season, I expect you to be there for the 50 games.
And I really don't think the Royals have any players that I think are risks of doing that because their best player is probably Whit Merrifield, and he scratched and clawed his way to the MLB. I mean, he spent a while in the minor leagues before they called him up to the show. So he's kind of put in his dues. I think he doesn't take the game for granted. So I don't think he'd be the one to say, I'm not going to play. And then Alex Gordon is probably the next superstar on that list, and he's towards the end of his career, so he's not going to give up a year.
No.
So I don't think there's anyone on that roster. Maybe Jorge Soler, who's had a great year and expects to have a super contract after having that great year. Maybe he decides that he doesn't want to play a 50-game season.
Yeah, I'm just going to have a serious problem with anyone that does that.
Yeah.
Even the superstar players that are going to sit back and go, well, we don't want to play 50 games. We want to save ourselves for a full year. Okay, then quietly get out of here. I don't want any part of you in the organization. If Bryce Harper does that, I don't like Bryce Harper to begin with. If Bryce Harper doesn't play 50 games, my sports hatred for Bryce Harper will be at an all-time high. I think he's an overrated person or overrated player, not person. I don't know him personally. He's an overrated player to begin with. If he were to say, yeah, I'm not gonna, my sports hatred for that guy would be off the charts. I would be extremely disappointed if Mike Trout, who I consider to be the best player in baseball, I would be extremely disappointed if Mike Trout said, hey guys, thanks but no thanks, we'll come back when the season is,
Mike Trout has always been like a cool-headed, kind of quiet guy. I feel like he'll play.
I hope so.
Because, he's never been like an outspoken kind of get character kind of player. He's just shown up, done his job extremely well, and then left. He's never really gotten into any character issues in the media or anything.
Yeah.
So I feel like he'll play.
I hope so. I
Bryce
hope
Harper,
so.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
Who knows what happens. I'll tell you this, the people that I don't feel sorry per se, but the people that I feel bad for are the upcoming free agents after the 2020 season because they ain't getting paid.
Lindor.
Not the way they were supposed to get paid. Well, Lindor's a free agent at the end of 2021.
Okay.
Yeah. But they're not getting paid.
It's arguably his last season in Cleveland.
Oh, there's no question. If there's no baseball this year, he ain't going to be in Cleveland in 2021. The Indians will trade him before the 2021 season because they don't have a chance to sign this guy. And look, they could sign him, but then they would be having a bunch of minimum wage players around him because the Indians are a small market team, and the owner doesn't want to put millions upon millions upon millions of dollars into the product because history has shown in the last 7 years the Indians have had a fantastic product on the field, and the fans haven't given a crap.
The fans don't want to hear that they're getting rid of Lindor, but look, you had your window with one of the best players in Major League Baseball. You had your shots.
Yep.
You couldn't cash in.
Yep. A drone in the Yankees and cheaters.
Right.
There you go.
You got it.
Drone in 2016, Yankees in 2017, a bunch of damn cheaters in 2018. Ugh, I hate my life. We're going to take a timeout. On the other side, we will hear from the voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Greg Brown. DJ Oakley is so happy right now that Greg Brown is going to be in studio via the YSN hotline because that's his hero. So we will talk with Greg Brown and get his take on what kind of a season we can expect, and will it be Commissioner Manfred that sets the tone, or does the union and management come to an agreement? We'll talk with Greg Brown about it. Stick around, more to come. It's a Wednesday edition of Running Point, YSNLive.com.
Baird Brothers remains your source for fine hardwood products. For the time being, we're open for customer pickup only on weekdays, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Saturday from 9 a.m. till noon. Place your order online at BairdBrothers.com. Baird Brothers, for the place you love.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
The 4M Company, being an architect and construction manager for over 40 years, has had the opportunity to use many different electrical businesses for our projects. The depth, quality, and knowledge and attention to detail displayed by Dickey Electric makes them stand out above all the rest.
For state-of-the-art expertise and a timeless commitment to our customers, contact Joe Dickey Electric. We are everything electrical.
Friday night, in this fresh limousine. I'm feeling pretty good about myself, like I'm living the dream. Platform shoes, strutting down the street. It's gonna get hot in here, I hope you can handle the heat.
Over the years, you watched us grow, and as we've grown, so has the Myers Family Insurance team.
Thanks to all of you who have trusted our families to help you with your Medicare needs.
Myers Family Insurance looks forward to helping you now for years to come, so call our family today and remind them how cute we are.
Myers Family Insurance continues to be the area's resource for all your Medicare and retirement needs. Call today, 330-286-3044.
Wednesday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta with you alongside Anthony Hardwig. DJ Yoakley, our commander-in-chief here, is here because, well, our guest, you don't normally come here unless we have a really, really big-time guest, and our big-time guest is the voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Greg Brown, joining me on YSNLive.com. Greg, what's up, brother?
Ron, what's happening?
Hey, I got to ask, I mean, you know, you don't have any baseball to broadcast. Has the honey-do list grown tremendously since the time you came home from Bradenton?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I at night I go to bed thinking, what in the world happened to this day? I've talked to so many people who are bored. I'm not bored in the least. Now, I'm tired of doing things other than broadcasting baseball games, but I'm busy because of as you said, the honeydew list. We happened to move just right at the beginning of February, a good distance from a previous home. We're just a little bit north of the city of Pittsburgh. Now we're further north, and you know, when you move, as you know, there's the boxes need to be emptied, and so much needs to be done. So I guess that's kind of the positive about the pandemic, if you could call it a positive, the fact that we're able to get a lot of the honeydew list taken care of. It'll never be completed in my lifetime, but at least I've made a dent.
Greg, as we go through all of the negotiations that are being played out in the media, which I don't think is right, but that's neither here nor there, are you somewhat encouraged by the players and the owners getting ever so closer to a possible deal for this 2020 season?
Yeah, Ron, actually, I have always, from day one, I've been positive about it. I'm just not one who jumps on the bandwagon to bash the players and the owners. In this case, I said to so many people, a lot of friends of mine, family members, let alone fans and acquaintances, bashing one side or the other and can't believe this is happening. And I remind them, first of all, this has never happened in our lifetimes. Let's hope it never happens again. It's unprecedented. There's no blueprint for it. There is a lot of money at stake. Many of us in this organization, the Pirate organization, and in sports, and in just about every walk of life, have either been furloughed or have had pay cuts. And I can tell you that when someone cuts my pay, I don't just accept it and understand. I'm fully understanding of how lucky I am to still have a job. But it's not like you just you're willing certainly to be a participant and make the sacrifice, but you don't just willy-nilly accept a pay cut. I mean, you don't rant and rave, but you certainly just you talk about it. You discuss the parameters of it. You talk about others in your field who have gone through the same thing, and how can I do my part to help in the society aspect of it? But I just don't believe that it's easy to say, oh, they should just be playing. They should just, it's $1 billion, the billionaires against the millionaires, and well, why don't they just shut up and play? Well, again, it's just not that easy. I think You're right. They shouldn't negotiate in public. I wish nothing were said because that makes both sides look bad. But I still think they all want to play baseball. I have always thought they will. I know they will. We'll be playing baseball. I've said for several days, a couple of weeks now, that I thought today actually was the day I had circled that something would get done. I've got a few hours yet before that actually happens, but at the very least, I think it'll happen by the end of this week, and we'll be playing ball in July. It's just a matter of how many games.
Greg, I got to ask, as a broadcaster, I mean, we're all used to 162 games in baseball, and prior to 162 games, the forefathers of Major League Baseball said 154 games. Let's be honest, it's going to be really weird if you have less than those two games, and while clearly we're going to be less than those two games, my question is, in your mind, what is going to be tolerable to have the season, for lack of a better term, mean a lot? Is there a number for you where if there's a certain amount of games played, you can sit back and go, okay, this season, yeah, the games were shortened, but this is an acceptable number under the circumstances?
Well, I think your last three words there are critical. Under the circumstances. This will be, again, the rest of our lives. The 2020 season will be the big asterisk season. Going forward, when you hear of what they are considering, even when games begin, the changes that they are talking about, including bringing the designated hitter into the National League, talk of double headers that would be 7-inning games. Discussions. I don't know how true it is. In extra innings, they would have a runner start at second base. Playing a schedule that would include only teams within your division, and in games against the other league, playing against the like division. In this case, the Pirates playing National League Central Division and American League Central Division clubs exclusively. So, really, no matter what people are saying, and I do hear that a lot also, that they're looking for a number that makes it legit. Well, really, it's going to be such an asterisk season that it's going to be separate from anything we've ever been involved in. The closest thing that we will come to, is the 1981 season. When the 1981 strike began on June the 12th, it forced the cancellation of 713 games. Many people, of course, I'm old enough to remember this, but even those who are as old or older than I tend to forget this. 713 games were eliminated in 1981, 38% of the Major League schedule in the middle of the season. They didn't resume the season until August the 9th. It began with an all-star game in Cleveland. The regular season resumed a day after that on August the 10th. So you were without baseball from June 12th to August 10th in 1981. And it was, of course, the format was entirely different. They played halves, which they do in the minor leagues, the lower minors, as you know, Ron, that they do the winners of the first half of a season play the winners of the second half. They did this in Major League Baseball in 1981. How about this? The Pirates and Cardinals played 102 games in 1981, the fewest of any teams in baseball. The Giants played 111. And now how bizarre is that? So a long-winded answer to the question, but I do think it's important to point out these things, because going forward, we're all going to just have to adapt and accept whatever they deem as reasonable, and I'm all for it. And I'm not a DH guy, but if it means baseball begins on July the 4th, and the designated hitter comes into the National League, preferably, in my opinion, for just this season, though I have my doubts, then I'm all for it. If it's starting a runner at second base in extra innings, I hated the idea up until now. But any form of baseball, as long as they're 60 feet 6 inches from the pitcher's mound to home plate, and the bases are 90 feet away, and we're playing ball, then I'm a go.
I'm just grateful that, and hopefully Major League Baseball learns their lesson from 1981, because piggybacking on what you said, the best team in Major League Baseball that year didn't even get into the dang playoffs, the Cincinnati Reds. They had the best record in all of baseball, but because they didn't win the first or second half, they were out of the equation altogether, which was incredibly stupid.
Well, exactly right. And, it was stupid when you look back on it. But again, at the time, I think, they just tried to make the best of it. And the Reds still, of course, hold a grudge, and understandably so. But if we were doing a talk show in June of 1981 prior to the strike, and you said, hey, what would you think if it looks like there's going to be a strike and we're going to miss 2 months of the season, and what if you decide that we're going to play halves? The winner of the first half plays the winner of the second half, and some teams are going to play 111 games, some teams are going to play 102 games, and you'd go like, are you out of your mind? That's not baseball. That's not going to count. Well, it counted, and when people discuss the years, baseball seasons, they don't go into depth of 1980. Rarely do you hear people talk about how the Reds got the shorter end of the stick there that year, 1981. Unless you go deep into it. But to a degree, it's almost glossed over that 1981 season. But again, they made the best of it, and that's what they're going to do this year in 2020.
Okay, you and I have a lot in common. We've both worked in the same complex in Youngstown. We're both baseball guys. I mean, obviously, you're a lot more successful in the industry than I am, but we both hate the DH with every fiber of our being. And I'm a huge Indians fan as well as a Pirates fan. I hate the DH, but I also understand everyone is saying, okay, the universal DH is coming. My whole thing is, okay, if the DH is coming, can we please have a compromise? And I'm going to throw this out to you and give me an opinion. I believe if you're going to have a DH, the DH should be in place after the starting pitcher has been taken out of the game. The starting pitcher starts, you're going to have the starting pitcher in the batting order. Soon as the starting pitcher is taken out of the ballgame, if he's taken out in the middle of the game and you want to have a DH from that point on, that's great. If he's taken out after the game or after the inning is over, the DH comes into play. Let's say the starter goes 6 innings. The DH is now batting in the number 9 spot from the 7th inning on. It's not perfect. I don't like the DH, but as someone who is a fan of baseball in its purest form, and they're trying to jam the DH down my throat, I'm okay with having this kind of a rule, knowing that whether we like it or not, the DH is coming.
Yeah, I've heard that, Ron. Again, I mean, I'm going to accept it regardless because I want baseball back. Prior this year, I would have debated vigorously with you or anyone who even suggested that much. My problem with the whole DH thing, and it's picked up steam for whatever reason. I guess social media has a lot to do with it. It's a lot of false narratives, in my opinion. It's people that truly, that's all my opinion. I don't want to offend any American League fans. They've grown up with it now, and then they like it. I've grown up a National League guy. I don't see anything wrong with 2 different leagues. In fact, if the DH does come into the National League, then we no longer have leagues. To me, it was cool when you had one league against another. There was a difference. The umpires were different. There were National League umpires, there were American League umpires. The All-Star game was meaningful because you didn't have interleague games. The World Series, it was the first time those teams would have ever met, the Pirates and the Yankees, of course, in 1960. The rivalry of the 2 leagues will be gone forever, and totally unnecessary now. Why? I imagine they won't even call it a National League and American League. They'll just call it the league, whatever. The other problem I have of the many, when people try to defend the DH, when they talk about, what the first thing I hear people say, the pro DHers is, I'm tired of a pitcher going up there and striking out or making an out. Well, I don't have the stats. I should take the time because I've got the time to do it. But I would venture a guess that on average in the National League, a starting pitcher probably bats twice a game, maybe on average, because they're out of these games so soon now because of the pitch count. So you're talking really about 2, maximum 3. I mean, rarely. The Max Scherzer, yeah, he gets 3 at-bats. Max Scherzer is an athlete, and he plays and he hits, and he's fun to watch bat. It's interesting that the guys that are the better starters seem to be the better hitters, too, because they take such pride in it. And they're out there longer. So you're talking a couple of at-bats a game, and people are saying that it's an automatic out. Well, on average, a pitcher hits about 100, so he gets a hit he fails 9 out of 10 times. As we know, the best hitters in the history of the game fail 7 out of 10 times. So getting a hit 2 more times than a pitcher, twice as much, you're willing to change rules because of 2 at-bats a game. And, of course, there's nothing like when a pitcher – the baseball, the whole idea about baseball is it gives you the possibility of seeing something you haven't seen in a while, or it's a rare occurrence. That's why the best hitters fail 7 out of 10 times, because 350 hitters are so rare. Most of the time, they do fail. That's the thing that excites you when a guy gets a hit or a home run. So when a pitcher gets up there and does something succeeds, it's out of the norm. That's why you go to a game, to see something out of the norm. So again, I'm going back to this idea that you're concerned about 2 at-bats a game, and look how many weak hitters there are in baseball anyway, outside the pitcher. I can point, in fact, halfway through last year, I pointed to a number of teams collectively, the DHs. There were about 3 or 4 designated hitters collectively on American League clubs about halfway through last year. I didn't follow up with it the rest of the year, who were hitting worse than several National League teams' pitching staffs. Now think of that. That's how it's crazy that people have, again, picked up this false narrative that it's all about, I'm tired of seeing a pitcher fail every time he comes to the plate, when really we're talking about a guy coming to the plate a couple of times a game. And Ron, to your point about putting the DH in when a reliever comes in, well, that's fine. But now we're seeing people talk about the DH adds a job for these players. But it doesn't talk about how now you eliminate bench players, because that's essentially what the DH does. It eliminates pinch hitters. So you don't have to worry about 2 or 3 or 4 good bench veteran guys that can come off the bench and hit and then field, because they are gone with the designated hitter. That's what pinch hitters allow you to do. When you have a starting pitcher, you want to get out there, you put a pinch hitter in there. Rarely does a relief pitcher ever hit in a game anyway. It's the pinch hitter. And to your point, if you want to have it be the DH instead of a different pinch hitter when a reliever is due up, that's fine. But for me, I prefer the old National League game where there is strategy and excitement when a pitcher does something out of the ordinary.
You, sir, are preaching to the choir. I could not have stated it any better.
Yeah, I know that.
Could not have stated it any better. Hey, I'm going to probably lose my job if I don't have this guy come on and talk to you. He is the CEO of the company that I work for, Your Sports Network, and he's a big fan of yours, DJ Yokley.
This is surreal. I mean, this whole thing is surreal. Greg, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I put it on my social media. You're one of the main reasons that we started this, because I've been listening and watching you as a diehard Pirate fan for years and years and years. Your creativity, your passion for the game, your energy, your realism at times of being the play-by-play for the Pirates has kept me coming back. Not so much for the product on the field, but to hear your analysis throughout the game. So thank you for all you do. I guess one of my main questions for you would be, given the player situation and given that we're a broadcasting company and a streaming company, how do you keep your reps? Like, I kind of envision you out there watching, maybe, taking things out to the trash and calling the play-by-play like that. How do you keep your reps up during this extended off season?
Well, TJ, that's very creative. First of all, you're way too kind. I thank you so much. It's very nice of you to say. Man, we love hearing Bucco fans, any part of the country, of course. And that's most important. Thanks for your loyalty to the Pirates. I maybe I should do that to stay sharp. I don't. I'm treating this almost like it's the winter, and I'm going to have to return at some point to spring training. And the unusual thing about this whole thing is that when we do return, unless something crazy happens, we are going to be really throwback broadcasters. Back in the days during World War II and at some point up to the Korean War when they did the recreations of the old ticker tape, and they did it in studio. They weren't on the road broadcasters in baseball. That's what we're going to be doing this time around. We're going to be broadcasting from a studio for road games, which is going to be highly unusual. So there's just no way to prepare for that. I guess I'm trying to prepare my mind for it. The one thing I did do in spring training before I headed north, and it was unintentional, I was taking my long daily walk around the neighborhood where I was in Bradenton, and it was just maybe a week after things had started to shut down. So because we were so unaware of what this pandemic was all about, where it came from, and we were sheltering in place even down in Florida, but you're allowed to go out really social distance, and I walked by myself, but I saw a couple of kids out in their front yard playing wiffle ball, which I grew up a wiffle ball player, and it really struck me. And on the sidewalk outside there, in this neighborhood, and these kids are playing wiffle ball, and I asked them, I said, "Hey, I know this sounds weird, kids, but would you mind if I videotaped you guys for a few seconds?" And they, well, okay, they thought it was weird. But I did that, and then I said, "Do you mind if I do a little play-by-play?" And I did. So for about a minute, I broadcast a wiffle ball game between looked like two brothers, younger kids. And afterward, I told them I was a broadcaster and that I was going to post it on social media. I got out of there before they ran in and told their parents that some old man was walking around the neighborhood doing play-by-play. As I walked away thinking, my gosh, they must really think I'm weird. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody, some cop shows up now to see what the heck I'm up to. But so that was my last foray into the play-by-play. I like the idea of taking out the trash. We got a fairly long walk. We actually just moved out. My wife's into horses, so we moved actually to a farm area, and it's probably a 150-yard walk to take the trash from the house out to the bin, and I might do that. I try and be creative on taking that trash out.
Greg, I have your solution.
Clear the bin, trash bag coming.
Greg, I have your solution. Well, as you're walking down, you can do the clear, the whatever. I think you should say, and the trash today is triple lined.
I like that too. I like it. I'm going to have to start doing that.
One of the questions I have, and it's probably cliche, but the creativity that you bring to the table, anywhere from the Marte Parte to El Cafe, and obviously that comes from a lot of the background and research that you do. When you came up with Raise the Jolly Roger, I mean, that is so just a staple in Pittsburgh right now. From Raise the Jolly Roger to Raise It, I mean, there's so many different renditions of it. When did it hit you that was going to be your call to finish a Pirate win?
Well, thanks for that. But most of the stuff that Steve Blass would always remind me, my good buddy, he would always remind me that I haven't had an original idea since the third grade. Most of the stuff I've done, I've stolen. That's the one thing I didn't steal. I was actually in the front office my previous life in the Pirates organization, and as an intern, an 18-year-old kid, I walked up to the vice president of administration one day and said, the Cubs, when they win at Wrigley Field, they raise this flag above Wrigley Field with a blue W over a white backdrop. And I said, what if we have a big skull and crossbones flag and the Pirates win, because that's what the Pirates do when they capture a ship. And he basically threw me out of his office, said we don't run a circus here. And years later, as a circus here in Pittsburgh with dogs barking, but years later, Bob Walk said you have to have a call. Years ago, he said, that's called the Jolly Roger. He said, how about we say hoist the Jolly Roger? And I changed it to raise the Jolly Roger. And it's worked out great.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say it's worked out really well. I have to back off, but I want to tell you that you always have an open invitation here if you ever need to brush up on any ball, and hopefully the season gets going. But obviously, if you ever want to make a trip down the road to Youngstown, we'd love to have you, either just in to talk to our young broadcasters, or man, what a great thing it'd be if you called a game in your off days. So, Greg, thanks for stopping on the show. It's a check off the bucket list for me. You have a fan forever. Thank you, sir.
Man, thanks a million for that, DJ. I really, really appreciate that.
Hey, Greg, always a pleasure, and I'll echo what DJ said. Anytime you want to join me at Bob Scene Park to do a B-League game, the seat is always welcome for you.
That sounds like a blast. Of course, you and I spent a year together in Youngstown working there at the station, and I'd love to go back to my roots. So I think I'll probably take you guys up on that. All
right, sounds like a plan. We'll definitely be in contact, because I know the longer the season doesn't get going, look, we're going to have a season. Whether Manfred decides to put a certain amount of games or whether both sides get together, we're going to have a season. So you might as well get yourself ready to go and in top shape when you start the season. So call it Bradenton via Youngstown.
I like it, and I guess I could only, you can only say raise the Jolly trash bag so often.
There you go. That's a walk-off, and you can now go back to raising the Jolly trash bag and continuing your honey-do list. So there you go.
Thanks a million, guys.
Greg, always a pleasure, sir.
Thank you, Ron.
Yes, sir. Greg Brown, the voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates, joining us on the YSN hotline. That's I kind of thought that would get you to have a smile on your face.
Pinch me, man. Pinch me. Like this guy, and I. Some people think I'm kind of creating drama in this situation. No, that's my hero. Like, you talk about the stuff that we do on YSN, some of the things I say. People ask me my favorite announcer, and without hesitation, I say Greg Brown. You the Vin Scully's of the world. Everybody likes Gus Johnson, and Greg Brown. If you listen to a broadcast that he does, and I'm so glad I got to tell him this, because the creativity that he uses in the calls, the puns that he uses, that I almost attribute. And I'm nobody, right? I'm just a kid from East Palestine, but I try to replicate what he does on the air when I do what I do, and it's almost a tip of the cap in our industry. It's not a copying, it's a tip of the cap. Like, I'm going to do what you do, but do it my way. And I just, when I watch Pirate games, obviously for the last couple of seasons at least, I'm not tuning in for the product. I'm tuning in for Greg Brown and what he's going to say and how he's going to say it, because he's real. He's one of those announcers that he will give it to you straight. No chaser. Like, he calls it like he sees it, and I respect that. And there's in the world of politically correct, there's politically correct and there's Greg Brown, and he's going to tell you how it is, and that's what a fan wants to hear.
Yeah, guys that have been in the industry, guys that have job security in Major League Baseball are able to do that. And unfortunately, you'll have some kids that are just starting out that can't do what the Tom Hamiltons, the Greg Browns, the Pat Hughes, the Dwayne Kuipers in San Francisco. When you have a lot of seniority and you're a proven commodity in your profession, you can get away with doing some things. And one of the things I admire most about Greg is what you said. He is going to give it to you straight, and he is not going to be someone that's going to He's not going to dilly-dally about anything. He's just going to say what's on his mind, and that's it. I mean, he knows where his bread's buttered, but he also knows this organization, if it needs to be criticized, I'm going to be the guy to do it. I'm just not going to do it in a way that gets me to lose my job.
Yeah, he's an outside the lines guy. We talk about people in our industry, in our world, in our circles, and whatever, that people that are straightforward march. They're going to color in the lines, within it with crayons. And then there's guys that are creative and go, listen, if I just go a little bit outside, it highlights what's on inside. That's what Greg Brown is to me. He's the guy that goes outside the box a little bit to make the product even that much more appreciated. And if you know Pittsburgh, you know Bill Hillgrove, what he brings to add on to the product that's on the floor, that's on the field, whatever. For my dollars, Greg Brown is one of the best at his craft. And I wish I would have told him this. It's embarrassing, but like when we used to get ready for a game, you get yourself psyched up with music, right? Or you watch YouTube videos. Before my games, big games, the state championship baseball game for South Range, I watch this one video. It's about 10 minutes long of Greg Brown's greatest calls. And the call with Rod Barajas, the call with Fort McHenry, who a lot of people say I look like him, and he played the same position as me, so I was naturally gravitated towards him. The Russell Martin home run, the walk-off by Kutch in 14 innings. It gets me jacked to do what I love doing, and that's calling baseball games. And tonight, doing this now, and now going to do a baseball game in a minor league stadium, I have literal goose pimples thinking about just how excited I am. Like we are, and not to get on a soapbox again, but we're blessed to do what we do.
Absolutely.
There's not many people that get to make a livelihood from calling sports and do it at such a level. And I don't want to say it's low, but it's we can talk to our people at whatever point. Right? We can talk to Anthony. You talked to how many girls this weekend for softball. We can talk to Dawn Pletcher. We can have him. The fact that Greg Brown was just on YSN for the second time in what, 3 months? This speaks to the people that we bring in yourself, Anthony, our entire team, and how we're moving forward. I love the fact that Greg was a part of that. I mean, again, that's bucket list for me. But now people listen to him, and what I wanted to get to is, we want to hear what he has to say about the baseball players. But I want to hear about him. Like, I would love to have him and just talk to him over a round of golf or a couple beers or whatever it ends up being, and just be like, what makes you tick? What gets you excited? And for him to come up with on the off-the-cuff things that he comes up with, the puns, it's in the back of his mind.
Yeah.
But you have to wait, keep your powder dry, so to speak, and you have to wait for the right time to drop it. And he's got probably a plethora, an entire wardrobe of shirts that he's created the taglines for, which I absolutely love. Raise the Jolly Rogers is amazing.
That was unique.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it is. That's solid.
Clear the deck, cannonball coming.
Yeah.
Like that's stuff that you can't use if you're an Indians fan. Because you're not the Pirates.
You're not the Pirates.
It's one of those things where he is so in tune with who he is and who he works for and what he does and who's listening that he is the best in the world at what he does. And nobody can take that away from him.
And that's the beauty of the local broadcaster, where you see the national guys on a weekly basis, whether it was the game of the week on NBC with Tony Kubek, Joe Garagiola, or way back in the day, Kurt Gowdy was involved in that. Modern day, Joe Buck and John Smoltz. National guys are fantastic. They do a fantastic job. I'm a big fan of Joe Buck. Yep. At the beginning of the time, I thought, this kid's got some ginormous shoes to fill because his dad is one of the best ever in Jack Buck, not just in baseball, but in football as well. And Joe is more than held his own. He's actually on par with his dad, and some would argue that he might even be better than his dad. That's a hell of a compliment. But for my money, I've often said it's the local guys that come into your home via a radio, television, whatever. The local guys that come into your home, they're the ones that bring a bigger, more profound impact toward your life as a fan. For me, Joe Tate growing up was the best there ever was in basketball. I'll argue till the day I'm dead that Joe Tate's the best basketball broadcaster in basketball, period. Even better than Marv Albert, even better than Chick Hearn and all the other guys. And he's going to be, hopefully, at some point in time on the show too. But
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So I'll ask both of you this question. You guys got to see, and you know, you watch 12-year-old DJ Yoakley come out of his shell there as a fanboy, and a little bit starstruck, which I don't get very easily. But I'll ask you this: is there because you're both announcers, do you feel that there's one particular announcer that has shaped the way that you take the mic?
Locally, Joe Tate.
Regionally
and locally, Joe Tate. Nationally. Oh, God. Nationally, Dick Enberg was phenomenal. You can't go wrong with Vin Scully. Right. His words are unbelievable.
For me, it's Kevin Harlan, because for the same reason, I mean, when I grew up, he was the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. So every time you saw a Chiefs highlight, you watched it with Kevin Harlan's call. And now he's national on CBS, and he's a great guy. Great announcer, but
do you feel like when you're in the booth, do you feel like you kind of embody that and take little things from him?
Yeah, I think that, and I when I listen to myself, I also I hear a lot of Ian Eagle too.
Yeah,
this in my inflection, and maybe because I've heard a lot of his calls, I like him, but Kevin Harlan's the guy that I grew up like that. I want to call games because of his calls.
Now I know you guys all listen back to your stuff. Ron, you watch your show constantly, and when you're starting Tuesday, you'll be listening back to your actual broadcast calls.
I did that way too much. 12 years doing this.
So when you listen back, or you hear yourself, or hear a clip of yourself, do you? Obviously, we all analyze it, but do you sit there and you go, okay, this is what I'm listening for. I'm listening because I want to be like this guy. I like the way that he patterns his words, or the way that he has pace, things like that. Do you listen to yourself in that, or do you just make sure that you're not like swearing, uncontrollably?
No, I don't.
Unconsciously.
I don't want to be. Greg Brown or Tom Hamilton or anyone. I want to be me with my own stuff, with my.
So you don't try to,
my style.
Like you said, Dick Enberg. You don't try to pattern yourself after?
I can pick bits and pieces, but small bits and pieces from everyone's
and it's funny,
repertoire, and then just make it mine.
Because I heard during spring season that your pace, your pattern, your style was compared to Tom Hamilton.
Well, he sounds a lot like
you sound a lot like, and I heard that from more than 5 people.
The running joke that I have with Hamilton is, "You stole my voice."
Yeah.
To which Hamilton looks at me and says, "I'm older than you. You pattern your voice to me." I'm like, shit. He's right.
But isn't that cool that
Oh no, absolutely. It's the greatest compliment you can ever have.
If anybody ever came up to me and said, "You sound like Greg Brown," I would hug them on the spot. Corona or not, I would hug them on the spot. I'd find a mask somewhere, pull it out, put it. I mean, honestly. There is no higher compliment to me than if someone said, "You sound like the guy that you cherish, you idolize in your profession." So that, like, if somebody came up, I mean, that's got to make you feel good that people say you sound like Tom Hanks.
No, absolutely, absolutely. But by the same token, I also, I want to make some of my stuff
pose an OG
as is. But no, when someone says, "Hey, you sound an awful lot like a guy who's top 3 in his industry,"
and who's the guy that
does, pretty solid.
Who's the guy that does like the Indians, the show on Sportstime Ohio? He's got the same kind of voice too.
Pulowski. Al Pulowski.
He's the host of the pregame and postgame show.
Okay.
But there's a guy that does like the Indians breakdown, or I forget what it's called on Sportstime Ohio.
Not Matt Underwood, right?
No.
I was going to say, we've met Matt Underwood.
I know who you're talking about, and I can't remember his name.
I can't remember his name for the life of me, but you remind me of him too.
Okay.
Awesome. I have to go do a baseball game. Ron,
Get outta here.
I thank you with my
Good job.
entirety of my heart. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Lock up.
Not a problem.
See you, boys.
All right. There he goes off into the Knights to do a game for YSN. Is it the Astro Falcons involved?
He's going to Eastlake.
Oh, he's going to Eastlake.
Astro Falcons, Team Ohio, Prospect Select.
All right. Astro Falcons against Team Ohio.
Tops.
Prospects.
Team Ohio Prospects
Select.
Tops.
There you go. Tops. That should be fun. Should be a good time. He goes up to Eastlake, the home of the Lake County Captains, which is the Indians' low A club. So there you go. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get Greg Brown to do a game with me.
He sounded like he was for it.
Well, I mean, look, I'm just throwing it out there.
That might be like, you might have to check on DJ if that happens.
Oh no, exactly. But I'm just throwing it out there because I know, as a broadcaster who hasn't done it in a while, you want to have some practice before you get back into the fold in the regular season. I mean, when the practice for the broadcasters are the spring training games. And some of them, some of the broadcasters, they get an opportunity to do all of the spring training games, whether it be online or various capacities. Look, I mean, you're not going to have any of the spring training games per se because you're not going to have any spring training, quote unquote. You're going to have guys just working out and doing some stuff. I don't think you're going to have spring training games, especially if you're in your own place. And I think most major league teams are going to be in their own place and not in their spring training facilities. So, yeah, I mean, for a broadcaster, you want to be able to at least have a few games in before you go back, especially if you're in Major League Baseball. That's why I'm bringing that out. And selfishly, I always wanted to do a game with Greg Brown, so there you go.
Well, DJ talked about it on Saturday when baseball came back to YSN. He had a little bit of rust on him. When you don't call games for a couple of months, then you're naturally going to be sitting there and a little bit rusty.
Yeah, absolutely. And you may not have the quickness. Like if someone hits the ball and you're not on top of the action, the crowd roars before you announce the result of the play. You're behind.
Yep.
So it's if you have rust, it's a great way to knock out the rust is to have a couple of games that may not mean much to the major league team, but it gives you, the broadcaster, an opportunity to get the rust off before you get to the season started. Why not?
So DJ just had his little starstruck moment.
Let me hear yours.
While we go to break, let's think about this. Who are some moments that you've had in your life that you've just been like, wow, I can't believe I'm meeting this person, or I can't believe I'm talking to this person?
You will very, very much enjoy one of the, quote, famous people that I had in my broadcast booth.
All right.
When I was in the Cubs organization. You'll get a kick out of this. No pun intended from what this person does in her chosen career.
All right.
We'll take a time out. It is a Wednesday edition of Running Points on ysnlive.com.
They say American craftsmanship is making a comeback. Of course, at Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, it never went away.
People are floored by Baird Brothers' authentic hardwood floors. They stare at our stairs and adore our doors. Baird Brothers reflects 3 generations of family craftsmanship. Visit our huge in-stock selection in person or at BairdBrothers.com.
Baird Brothers, our family's heritage, your family's home.
Planning a project around your home or rental property? Trust the electrical service to the local experts with 62 years of serving the Mahoning Valley. Joe Dickey Electric is your local go-to source for responsive, reliable residential electrical work. From everyday maintenance and repairs to new installations, electrical upgrades, and safety inspections, no job is too big or too small. Call Joe Dickey Electric today, 800-549-3976, or visit DickeyElectric.com. That's DickeyElectric.com.
Myers Family Insurance knows the importance of a great team.
Our team continues to grow to help you with your Medicare and retirement needs.
The annual election period is here, so it's all hands on deck to make sure your plans still meet your needs for 2020.
Call us today.
It's a Wednesday edition of Running Points on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta with you alongside Anthony Hardwig. Number to call, 330-886-0813. Anthony, you posed a question prior to the break. Go ahead and hit that again.
Because DJ just had his kind of starstruck moment. He got to talk to his hero. What are some people that you have kind of had that starstruck moment with where you're saying, I can't believe I'm meeting this person, or I can't believe I'm talking to this person? I'm sure you've had a couple.
24 years of age, first sports job at WFMJ AM, which is now the Sports Animal 1390. By the way, WFMJ AM was in the studios of WFMJ TV. That's where Greg Brown and I were together. He was doing weekends on the TV, and I was doing this. I interviewed Joe Tate, and not on the phone. Joe came down to Youngstown. We were the voice of the Youngstown affiliate of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and this was prior to the start of the 1988-89 NBA season, the season in which Michael Jordan hit the shot over Craig Elo. Joe Tate came into the studio. I had a Sunday night show from 7 to 9, and Joe Tate came in the studio. It was originally supposed to be for 1 hour. He stayed the entire 2 hours. We took phone calls. First hour was the interview. Second hour was the phone calls. And I remember distinctly saying, as I met him, I said, Mr. Tate, my name is Ron Potesta, very nice to meet you. And this, without question, was the most important thing and made me feel incredibly special. He looked at me and he said, I'm not Mr. Tate, sir. My name is Joe. Please call me Joe. And I just good Lord, I'm on a first name basis with the best basketball player or best basketball broadcaster in the game today. And it's just, and you will never convince me he is not the best basketball broadcaster ever. I've heard a number of guys do their games. This guy is the best of the best of the best. It's a damn shame he was not able to do a game nationally as much as he did. He should have been a national broadcaster. He was that good. But to have him on, to come down to Youngstown and to have him on for 2 hours, as a 24-year-old, I'm looking at this going, it doesn't get any better than this. And here we are 31 years later. I can only think of one other thing that I just stopped and said, I can't believe this is happening. And it would be not even baseball. Well, it's baseball related, but it's not broadcasting related. I had just taken a job with the Dodgers organization in Vero Beach, Florida. And a friend of mine who got me this job said, hey, come to the golf course Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. We're golfing with 2 other people. I'm like, all right, no problem. Well, I was fashionably late. And I told him, I said, hey, listen, I'm going to be late. I had to run a few errands. He says, no big deal. He says, pick us up on the 4th hole. I said, okay. So I get my stuff, go over there, going toward the 4th hole. And this guy comes close to me. And I'm like, I know this guy from somewhere. I don't know who this person is. He gets about 10 feet away from me. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm golfing with this guy. He sticks his hand out, and he looks at me, and he said, Ron, he says, I am so happy to meet you, Sandy Koufax. What do you do at that point?
Right.
I mean, I'm just like, Yeah, that's crazy. That's just absolutely nuts. Crazy stuff.
Now, what was the one that you said I'd get a kick out of?
You'll get a kick out of this. I think it was the after Sammy Sosa had made his appearance at Pringles on a rehab assignment, and the place was just buzzing all over the place. I mean, it's Sammy, but we had another pretty good name that was a prominent big leaguer that was coming to Jackson on a rehab assignment, and he'd recently gotten married to a pretty substantial female athlete of her own. Nomar Garcia Parra was the guy. Well, he had just gotten married to Mia Hamm, the soccer player. So Mia Hamm basically flat out said, look, I want to follow my husband on his journey, but I don't want to be upstaging him.
Yeah.
So if I come to the game, I got to go somewhere where nobody knows where I am. Nobody knows if I'm even at the ballpark. This is kind of a tough thing because, look, it's freaking Mia Hamm.
It's a minor league ballpark.
And she's the best soccer player in the world at this part. They had just 4 years down, I want to say 5 years earlier, won the World Cup. It's Mia Hamm.
Right.
So a couple of days before Nomar Garcia Parra comes to town, we're still trying to figure out what are we going to do with Mia Hamm? I mean, you can't put her in the stands. People will go crazy over that. You can't put her in a suite. People are going to see that. What can you do? So I, being the very intelligent person and the volunteer that I am, said, guys, and I'm not saying this because I want to hog her to myself, but it makes sense. Nobody comes into the broadcast booth.
Right.
I don't allow anyone in the broadcast booth unless they have business in the broadcast booth.
And no one really takes time to look up in the broadcast.
And no one takes time to look in the broadcast booth. And even when we had the seventh inning stretch, she was nowhere to be found. She would, I mean, you couldn't see her. We would hide her when we had the seventh inning stretch. And my general manager kind of looked at me and he said, oh, come on. He says, you just want her, all by yourself, to whatever. But then he thought about it some more and he said, you know what, you're right. So for 6 nights, 6 home games, Mia Hamm was sitting right next to me as I was doing play-by-play of Diamond Jacks baseball with Nomar Garcia Parra playing 5 to 6 innings a night. And then I think the last couple of games, he wound up playing the entire game. And you want to talk about surreal. In between innings, I mean, you got to have a conversation with this woman because she's in the booth. Why not? I got to know Mia Hamm, why she became a soccer player, why she was infatuated with the game, and what drove her to be the best player in the world. I wish I could have interviewed her and had all of this stuff, but it was just, she was there and I was doing my game. Calling a game with someone in the broadcast booth is different because if you're by yourself, it's conversation with yourself. Nobody's critiquing you. Anytime someone's in the broadcast booth with me, I get uncomfortable because I feel like I'm not talking to myself anymore. Now I got someone in the booth, and it's weird that way. It's weird that way.
And it's Mia Hamm.
And it's Mia Hamm, who, oh, by the way, is the best soccer player in the world. And, yes, she is every bit as the star power that she is. She's just absolutely gorgeous and just a wonderful human being. And I got to know her in between the innings while a minute and a half where the commercials were going. We're going back and forth about what we did when we were growing up. I mean, it was unbelievable, the conversations that we had during these 6 games. It was fun.
Another cool thing is she married Nomar Garcia Parra, who went to Georgia Tech.
There you go. There you go. So no, Nomar was good people.
No, he's good.
He was good people. He kind of like eyeballed me when I was telling him that the Mia was. I'm like looking at him. I'm dude. Look at me. Seriously, you think I'm a threat to your? Yeah, right. It was fun. It was a good time, and she was really, really good through all of that.
Yeah.
It was. She didn't upstage anyone. She didn't want to upstage anyone. I became a much bigger Mia Hamm fan during those 6 days because she stopped becoming Mia Hamm, the globally known best soccer player in the world, and she was Mia Hamm, the wife of Nomar Garcia-Parra, and she wanted all the attention on Nomar. It was as cool as all get out.
And I'm sure when Nomar went to a soccer game, he kind of wanted the same kind of
absolutely
flip dynamic. Because,
absolutely.
You don't want to upstage your spouse. I wish Jessica Simpson would have taken that advice when she went to Cowboys games because all the Cowboys fans blamed her for Tony Romo's collapse.
Well, and look, I mean, it's the TV camera's going to find you.
You're going to find you.
Yeah, they're going to find you regardless. So thank God you didn't have the TV camera, and we kept this secret. I got to give the organization credit. We kept this secret so hidden that the local TV stations had no clue Mia Hamm was in the studio, and in the broadcast booth. They had no clue. Otherwise, it would have been chaos, and Mia Hamm would have been, even the PA announcer and everyone in the press box, which is 3 doors down from my broadcast booth. Nobody knew.
I give props because it's really hard to keep that kind of secret.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many people knew about it. Probably a group of, would you say like 10?
The owner of the Holiday Inn Hotel knew about it because Nomar and Mia stayed at the hotel. I would imagine that people knew, or some people knew, hey, that's Mia Hamm. What's she doing in town? But nobody saw her in the game, and nobody interviewed her. So it was pretty well done. That was very short list of one of the coolest things that I did in minor league baseball. That was a lot of fun. It was an awful lot of fun.
For me, we talked about it. I was just becoming a Georgia Tech fan. It was 2000. I want to say 2006, 2007. It had to be 2006 because it was his last year at Georgia Tech. Kevin Tuminello, who went to Boardman High School and then went to play as center for Georgia Tech.
There you go.
His dad was one of my dad's patients. And he walked into my dad's doctor's office and he was wearing a Georgia Tech jacket. And my dad goes, "Hey, my son really likes Georgia Tech." Well, this guy was like, "Oh, that's great. We never get fans up here. I'll get him tickets." So, lo and behold,
you have my attention here.
Lo and behold, all of a sudden, I'm sitting there with tickets to the Georgia Tech Georgia game in Atlanta, which is the biggest game of the year.
Absolutely.
The November before my 16th birthday.
Wow.
And Mr. Tuminello gets me into the locker room.
Alrighty then.
I got to meet Megatron.
Yeah.
I got to meet Tashard Choice, who went on to play in the NFL.
Yeah.
Got to meet Chan Gailey, who was their coach at that point.
Who was a very good coach.
And Chan Gailey took me aside. He goes, we're going to get pictures and everything, but before you do, I want to tell you something. He goes, you're going to face more obstacles than a lot of people in the world. But he said, you're going to have the opportunity to work harder than them because of those obstacles. Don't forget that. And then we went to the locker room, but he took the time just to have that conference, almost like a coach's conversation with me before we went to do the pictures. And I'll never forget that because it's one of the reasons that took me from just being like a casual Georgia Tech fan to like die hard. I'm all for Georgia Tech because of the people I met there, the people I've met from Georgia Tech since. It's one of those moments,
Yeah.
When you meet Calvin Johnson, I mean,
there you go.
You die. But then in high school, I got to meet Sean Johnson, who was Olympic gold medalist for USA. That was because it was a crush. And also, I really got into gymnastics and started watching a lot because of that. But when you get to meet someone like that too, that's one of those moments. That was more awestrucking because it was a beautiful girl, and I'm a 16-year-old kid in high school. That was the more I can't talk.
Yeah.
Calvin Johnson was just more of a I can't believe I'm in this situation. But you don't kind of lose your voice for Calvin Johnson.
No.
You lose your voice for Calvin Johnson.
Well, you lose your voice anytime a beautiful woman is in your presence as a teenager. Absolutely.
But, I'll give the Akron athletic director at the time, because she was doing publicity all around the country. For some reason, she was doing publicity to Akron after a basketball game. He saw me. We talked to him for a while. Then he was like, "Are you guys here for Sean Johnston?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm going to let you meet her first so you don't have to deal with all the lines and waiting through people." So I got to meet her before everyone else kind of waited in line and had like the 5-second picture.
There you go.
So I got to have a legitimate conversation with Sean Johnson. So
nice.
It was a one-sided conversation.
Well, yeah, because you couldn't talk. So
it's one of those cool moments because everyone in school knew how much I liked Sean Johnson. So when I got into school after that weekend and I brought a picture with Sean Johnson,
street cred went up considerably. Yeah, considerably. There you go.
I was cool for a week, so.
There you go.
And then my uncoolness kind of went back into awkward high school ages.
It tends to happen that way. Tends to happen that way. On that note, we are out of here. Thanks for tuning in. Many, many thanks to Brian Tolnar from Mill Creek. He will join us every Wednesday at 1 o'clock to preview the upcoming PGA Tour event. Also, to give everyone a tip for your golf game, which is something that I most definitely need, and I'm writing stuff down. Also, many, many thanks to the voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Greg Brown, for stopping by as well. We will catch up on a phone-in Friday edition of Running Points, noon to 3, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on YSNLive.com. Make it a great rest of Wednesday. We'll talk to you noon to 3